Good evening and welcome to the Carnegie Town Hall. This meeting of the City Council will begin in a few moments. The City Council meets on the first, second, and third Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m. and serves as the city's policymaking and legislative body. Each meeting is governed by Robert's Rule of Order unless those guidelines conflict with city ordinance or charter. City Council meetings offer an opportunity for citizens to speak directly to their elected representatives. Those in attendance are invited to address the Council during the public input segment at the beginning of the agenda. At that time, any issue that is not subject to formal action later in the agenda can be addressed. Testimony that concerns a resolution or an ordinance's second reading is only allowed when those specific agenda items are being addressed by the Council. When addressing the Council, citizens should speak directly into the microphones at the podium and state their names for the record after being recognized by the chair. To accommodate and respect all viewpoints, citizen comments are limited by ordinance to no more than 5 minutes each. Comments should be respectful and focused on providing new information that will benefit the Council's deliberative process. By city ordinance, all remarks must be addressed to the City Council as a body and not to any City Council member, including the mayor. The chair reserves the right to limit the number of speakers. City Council meetings are broadcast live on CityLink and online at siouxfalls.org. Information regarding the City Council, its committees, meetings, briefings, and members is available by visiting siouxfalls.org/council or by calling the Council office at 605-367-8085. Thank you for your interest in Sioux Falls City Government.
Hey, new guy, okay, get a little grace. It's June 12, as I was saying. Thanks for coming out. Good-sized group here tonight. Look forward to a great discussion. To begin the meeting tonight, I would ask our clerk to read the roll, please.
Council members Kiley.
Here.
Neitzer.
Here.
Selberg.
Here.
Sale.
Here.
Starr.
Here.
Staley.
Here.
Brecky.
Here.
Erickson.
All right. Next up, as we traditionally do, we begin our meetings with the invocation. And Reverend Brett Best, are you here? Because if not, I am going to have to pinch hit for Reverend Best. So we will do that. We will stand and stay standing, and afterwards we will say the Pledge of Allegiance. So please join me in the invocation. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time that we can be gathered here tonight to conduct the business of this city. We thank you for the men and women who are sitting up here serving and who have answered the call to serve and to give of their time and talents, in some cases their treasure, to give back to this community. Lord, we thank you for the people that have come out to support their leadership and to have their voices heard in city government, which we know is an important part of what we do here in the city. Lord, we ask that if we have to disagree on issues, may we do that, but may we not be disagreeable. May we listen to one another, learn from one another, and ultimately do the best thing for the city in accordance with your will. In Jesus' name we pray this. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll move on to approval of the consent agenda. Are there any changes to the consent agenda or any motions any councilors would like to make?
Move to approve.
Second, Selberg.
Motion to approve Kiley, seconded by Selberg. Any discussion? If not, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Kiley,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
That has passed 7-0. Now we will move over to our regular agenda and would like a motion to approve the regular agenda, please.
Move to approve.
Second, Nitzert.
Motion to approve by Kiley, seconded by Councilor Nitzert. Any discussion or debate on our agenda this evening?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to
Councilor
make a comment that anyone who is here to talk about I know there was some confusion. People will notice that the input thing comes up on the first reading, so that you still may discuss something at public input, and then I would ask if you are here for that item that you'd stay. Watch how the vote goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other discussion on the agenda? If not, a roll call vote on that, please.
Council members Kiley,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
That has passed 7-0. Now we will move on to the public input portion of our meeting. And how public input will work tonight, we likely have quite a few folks who would like to speak. And so what I would like to see is when you're ready to speak, please approach the mic, state your name. You'll have 5 minutes to speak to address the council as a whole. While that person is speaking, maybe the next person could come and make their way towards the front so we can move it along in an orderly fashion. So, Thor, I'll let you go ahead and start, and welcome. Good to see you.
Good evening. My name is Thor Barden. I am a resident of Sioux Falls. My reason coming up here today is a response to a public notice that there is a proposal to change the time of public input section of the meeting. From my current understanding through reports from the media, speaking with other citizens and several of you, the current approach has a few problems that might need to be addressed, and I appreciate that those introducing the proposal are starting the conversation, and that there are others actively rallying the public to make sure that their voices are heard. With that, I provide the following opinions. During my conversations in the last few days, I've come to understand that the statistical analysis and research done by one citizen has determined that more than 60% of all public input from the beginning of the year has been provided by just 7 people. This means that less than 40% of the public input has been received from people who are either new to the process or are sure that they only address the council when in belief that it is absolutely necessary and in their best option for their concerns. This does not mean that the 7 people who regularly provide input should be discounted, though, as we can, in my opinion, directly contribute some landmark issues being brought to light as a result. Those landmark issues include the golf contract issue and the siting issue on the Premier Center. But it should also be pointed out that as a citizen interacting with the public, I've been told by several people that they wish public input was not provided by those 7 people at the beginning, because a majority of the time, the topics that they speak about are quite obviously not related to the evening's meeting or have not had an attempt at resolution before presenting them in such a public fashion. On another topic, I assert that the public input has changed into a spectacle that it should not be. While as elected officials you work for the people, this does not mean that the public should be disrespectful or that they are entitled to speak in a televised and recorded forum in a manner that is laced with profanity. And I believe that given the increased frequency of this happening, it is unfair for the public to continue to be held hostage by these commentators, especially when the public includes children that are quite young. I think it would be a horrible circumstance if we had a group of young children attend a meeting to witness our governmental process, and their lesson for the day was that the meeting is where adults get to be disrespectful to their city leaders and use profanity in a manner that is degrading instead of a manner of emphasis. While this is their right to free speech, it only adds justification that perhaps this should be held until after general business of the meeting is done, in order to protect the public from such a show. But it is worth pointing out that forcing these individuals to wait till the end of the meeting might only serve to add fuel to fire and cause the issue only to get worse. And a final point in summary, I do not believe that moving the time of all public input will solve either of these issues. I understand that there have been statements that the media is having a hard time reporting the news on council decisions due to the length of public input at some instances. While I appreciate the media's concern, I feel that it is necessary to point out that this concern should be disregarded, because it is not the government's job to help make the media money or get the story out first. You may serve the public They may serve the public as well, but we pay them, not the other way around. There's been an argument that moving the public input section to the end of the meeting will be an attack on our ability to speak. Frankly, while I understand that this might be a discouragement to some, it quite frankly means to me that if they are discouraged at what time they have to present, then maybe they don't feel as strongly about their issue as they should before bringing it before a public and the council. I can tell you that if public input was at 3 a.m., you are completely correct that I would try to resolve the issue before coming to public input. But you better believe that if it was important to me, the lack of sleep would be worth the effort and slight inconvenience. And another point, I have heard the opinion that maybe we should consider changing the length of the input. 5 minutes is appropriate, but we would absolutely be limiting speech as well if we did anything to shorten that time. The solution to all this, I don't feel qualified to form one of my own. But I also don't think that the council is coming from a point of research or public backing on this, and therefore, I politely request that you table or kill this proposal and ask that you make a motion to form a committee that will be open for public comment to find a solution to various problems that we have with the current process. Additionally, I would also like to see part of that solution be a redelegation of power or time management when it comes to which meeting handles what topic. Part of the timing issue in all this is that it would be really nice to see the alcohol licenses in their own meeting, since most of them are approved and seldom commented on by the public. I would also like to see the zoning issues as well be made into its own meeting for the same reasons. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thor, great input. Thank you. Good evening, Heather.
Good evening. This is hi, I'm Heather Pastor. Just want to read a couple things here. You know, I have spoken a few times about my living situation, and this all started from, well, let me read a list I have here. This is all the stuff that my old landlord, Mark Samuel Graham, did to me, which was a result of what happened. Let's see here. Landlord's son grabbed me by my throat. He was arrested. Landlord said that he would rent to my fiance as long as he got rid of me. I was being nonstop antagonized every day. See here. We were evicted even though we had proof that we did in fact pay our rent. See here. We overpaid our rent. They refused to give our rent money back. Now I have proof of a protection order that the state's attorney put on my behalf. Says right here that on May 9th of 2017, the courts had ordered Mark Samuel Graham to have no contact with me. The only thing bad about this is instead of mentioning the assault he did to me, they mentioned about the assault that he did to police officer. That's one line of business. Moving on forward, due to the situation, I have been discriminated against. I have been slandered, blacklisted, and right now, the price figure where we're at right now for me and my fiance that we both pay out of our own pocket to have a roof over our head. But what's this price figure right here, babe? What's this price figure right here?
$7,505.
We pay $850 a month to live at a motel because we can't get in nowhere. And also on the topic that that gentleman just brought up, I don't know if I could say certain names or not at the meeting. Let me just put it to you like this. There's a certain individual through here that is going up on social media and saying very not so very nice things about the community and the people that come to the city meetings. When somebody sits on social media and says things like, the people of the community don't matter, only money talks, and the people of power and money matters, and not the people that come to the meeting to discuss what their issues are, that's not right. And that certain individual knows who I'm talking about. I think that maybe you guys be reconsidering about who you have work through the city, because that is not right. That's unprofessional. You don't make fun of people. You don't do that. Sorry, but
Thank you, Heather. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry.
All right.
I know this is red, but it's just, to me, it's just a bandana, okay? So.
What's your name, sir?
James Reed, okay? Geez, I forgot what I was going to say now. But I do agree with him that profanity should not be used because, like I said, it's
Thank you.
Everybody sees it and it is inappropriate. Oh, I forgot what I was going to say. I'm sorry, guys.
It's all right.
I forgot. I'm sorry. Just totally lost my confidence.
All right. You can come back later, James. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening,
Evening.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members. My name is Rebecca Dunn. I'm here to speak to the value and the courtesy to citizens by keeping the public input at 7 o'clock at the beginning of the council meetings. When I read that there was discussion to move this toward the end of your council meetings, I just thought, why? For children that would like to come and testify and talk about their swimming pools or their skateboard parks or whatever is of interest to them, to sit here for 2 or 3 hours until things are completed to speak adds an unnecessary encumbrance to them and to their parents. Is it courteous and respectful for our seniors or disabled persons who need to try to get a ride and stay for an unlimited amount of time and then to try to get a ride home afterwards? For citizens who work all day or are planning to go to work after they speak before you, or that may need to get a sitter, maybe single parents that just simply need to get their child fed and to bed before they come at 7 o'clock. I think we're creating a financial hardship as well as other hardships for our citizens. By moving public policy to the end of the meeting, some of them will not wait. Some will not come at all. And thought will be squashed and limited. Maybe it'll be less of a hassle to you if we move input to the end. But it's a real hassle for the citizens to have to wait for 3 or 4 hours, or 2 hours, 3 hours, 4, whatever it is, to speak. Mr. Mayor, I've been following you, and I know you're an advocate yourself of transparency in government. And I certainly think that includes your wish to listen to the people and the voice of the people. Starting at 7 o'clock p.m., when mentioning time limitations, I think it would be appropriate at that time, Mr. Mayor, to mention that all present, absolutely no belligerence behavior, no vulgarity will be tolerated in this room. If they are, they will be removed immediately. Appropriate language and manner is required toward the mayor, toward each of you, and certainly to all citizens in the audience. All citizens should not be punished because there's a few people that speak inappropriately and have to be moved to the end of the meeting. When our people take the time, rather than go on social media or go on Facebook and rant and rave, they come down here and get up and stand before you. We should show every courtesy to them, to listen to them. Shouldn't we encourage that? Please consider keeping the input at the beginning of the City Council meeting for the benefit of all citizens of our community. Having the early input will allow each citizen, a working man or woman, people with disabilities, seniors, children, to plan for that hour, to come in, say what they want to say. And I think this should be encouraged. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Rebecca. Yes.
Maybe you want to only have a couple people stand, if some of those people might be standing for a half an hour if they're...
Yes. Feel free to sit, and then the next person can approach when the other person's wrapping up.
Okay.
Welcome. Yeah. Kermit, hi.
Hi, I'm Kermit Staggers, and let me first of all congratulate all of you who are new members to the City Council. and winning your last election. During the next 4 years, you're going to have an interesting time with many different issues. And one of these issues that the council has dealt with before is this question of when we should have citizens speak before the council. So the main reason I wanted to say something was to let you know, hey, this is nothing new. We've dealt with this issue in the past, but we've always kept citizen input at the beginning of the meeting. Now, I was talking to my wife, June, here about this issue being brought before the council tonight, and she was so passionate about this. She wanted to come and speak. So she's going to speak a lot longer than me, and she's going to do a lot better job. So go ahead.
I wouldn't say a lot better job, but maybe, who knows. Hello, my name is June Staggers. I'm Kermit Staggers' wife. I've been a resident of Sioux Falls for over 30 years, voting when I can, paying taxes when I must. First, I must congratulate those who won their election, the mayor, congratulations, city council people, Rex. Secondly, I want to thank the city government for allowing the citizens of Sioux Falls input at the beginning of city council meetings. This right to speak before the city council and the mayor is a very important democratic, with a little d, principle, which this body thankfully exercises. As a citizen of Sioux Falls, I'm comforted to know that members of my city government take the time to listen to its constituency, to hear their concerns, and aware of the people's needs relative to the city's action or inactions. It is good that this body listens to a constituency, young or old, rich or poor, and promises to put the citizens of Sioux Falls first in their minds and in their hearts. By putting citizen input at the beginning of each meeting, it makes us, the Sioux Falls voters, feel important. Makes us believe that we're being heard. Makes us believe that the city council and the mayor are keeping their promise of putting their constituents first. By putting the citizens' input at the end of the city council's agenda, we, the voters, feel, or many of us, feel that you're being dismissive, that you're hoping that people who want to talk to you will leave, thus shortening the city council meetings. But please, please keep the citizens' input at the beginning of the city council meetings. Please listen to us. And please keep your promise, or many of you promised, of putting your constituents' needs above your own first, thereby leaving citizens' input at the beginning of city council meetings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, June. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Hello.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Tamby White. I'm very concerned with this ordinance being proposed tonight. To be fully transparent here, I did email and call some council members, and I did receive important feedback. And I want to thank you that did call me back or reply to my emails. I first want to mention a valid argument worth talking about that Greg Nietzscher had emailed me. And he said that the fact that is getting lost in this argument is someone will have to wait, either business or the general public input on anything people want to talk about that isn't on the agenda. Respectfully, I believe that is not entirely accurate. From my understanding, first readings that are on the agenda do not allow public input during the business portion of the meeting. Some folks that believe that an agenda item that is important enough will speak during this open public testimony. So my point is, open public testimony is not just topics related to anything. I hope you all will take that fact into consideration, perhaps maybe letting folks talk about first readings during the business portion. The second argument is that the public testimony has somehow turned into an X-rated movie with swearing and whatnot. I don't believe that statement is entirely accurate. I have been to multiple city council meetings and I have watched them on TV. I have only personally witnessed this one time. And lastly, referencing Council Nietzert's email again, he states that he thinks it's the business community that is currently being affected by our public input portion. I hope these businesses are here tonight and that they will come forward if that is truly their concern. I have the confidence that Mayor Tenhaken can think outside his toolbox and come up with alternative solutions while working with his fellow council members. I believe that this is not an either-or argument. That would be illogical to think so. Please table this policy until all can come to an agreement with a reasonable solution. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Tammy. Appreciate it. Good evening, man.
Good evening.
How are you?
My name is John Mathias. I'm a Sioux Falls native, and I'm going to attempt to edit my prepared remarks so to respect your time and everyone's in attendance at the meeting tonight, so as not to repeat important points that have been made by those who have spoken before me, particularly the immediate prior speaker, Ms. Dunn and Mrs. Staggers. As an occasional participant in public input, I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts on the change proposed to move public input to the end of the council meeting. I urge all councilors and the mayor to reject this proposal. One or more less drastic approaches are available to the council to enhance the efficiency of public input and/or restore any loss of decorum. In the months following the 2016 presidential election, I heard a local journalist turned broadcaster speak to a group of concerned citizens. He shared an astute observation which I believe is very relevant. Citizens, for the most part, have a realistic opportunity to make a difference in government only where they live. Washington, D.C. presidential and congressional matters are beyond the reach of the average citizen's direct influence. This is an example of why public input is regarded as sacred by many of us. The placement of this opportunity near the beginning of the meeting agenda is a representation that our voices are valued, heard, and can make a difference in city government. A major downside to moving public input to the end of the agenda is the symbolism that citizen input prior to a first reading agenda item is of no value and will have no influence on the council vote of a first reading agenda item. As was insightfully noted on a prominent local political blog, most petitioners attending a council meeting seek to legally gain financially by engaging the city council. But conversely, public input participants are not paid for their time at a city council meeting. As taxpayers, citizens in effect pay for all of the hard and soft costs associated with such a meeting and the related governmental procedures. Any assertion that this change proposal is to make the evening shorter for petitioners and/or municipal employees is an affront to public input participants who stand to benefit the least financially from attending a council meeting. Lastly, I'd like to address my fellow public input participants. Let's be part of the solution of any perceived problems with public input and not part of the problem. Time is valuable to everyone participating in a city council meeting. While public input is an exercise in free speech, we don't have the right to abuse this, just as we don't have the right to carelessly yell fire in a crowded theater. We don't have the right to disrupt a public governmental meeting with profanity or threats. Make no mistake, this proposed action is in part in response to such disrespect during the previous administration. Carefully prepared and rehearsed civil remarks will be far more influential than abusive or lecturing rants. Public input time should not be anyone's weekly hobby, or a forum for irrelevant musings, or an outlet for a failed aspiring elected official. Instead, a person can start a blog or a podcast, get a community access TV show, or solicit opportunities to speak to any civic or hobby group that will have you. But don't waste valuable public input time and put this forum in further jeopardy. Thank you.
John, well said. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mayor, City Council. I'm Kathy Brachtelsbauer. I live on Route 5 and in the city. So first thing I would like to say is I want to thank the city for the wonderful municipal band that we have. It's just a wonderful treasure, and I hope to see more people out there. I go to the Sunday night ones at Terrace Park, and it's just a wonderful evening every Sunday in the summer. There are other ones during the week, too. But also, I want to mention elaborate a little bit on points that have been made about the input at the beginning of the meeting. Because some of you have been in, probably all of us have been in many other meetings. And many of these meetings have people who are there who have cars, and maybe they have people at home taking care of the kids that had to be left home and that kind of thing. But here in the city, at 7 o'clock, we have the most potential diversity at the city council meetings because of the ability of people to come at that time and possibly not later. And I know that I have helped some people as my role in a community volunteer advocate. I have encouraged people to come to council, and like low-income parents, for example. And sometimes if an item's on the agenda, I'm able to guess, tell them a little prediction of about where it would come. But a lot of times it's not something on the agenda. But it's been wonderful that I've never had to say, and you have to wait till the end of the meeting to say something to make your point. And there have been several times when I've accompanied children to the meeting to make their point. They had input that they wanted to say about changing policies of the city. And we have some better policies in this city because of the input of some of these children that I've accompanied here. And I'm so proud of them. But I wouldn't want to have to say, can you come? It's a school night, I know, and it's at the end of the meeting. I've never had to say that. And it's been wonderful to be able to bring whoever can come and be able to have them come speak at the beginning. So I just wanted to mention that because I believe our city is better off. It is better because we've had the input at the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate that. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Kersey, and I have thought about, before I came, some of the things that were said by Rebecca Dunn and Kathy Brachtelsbauer and John. But this afternoon I was thinking about democracy and how important it is, and I'm of an age where perhaps I came from a very patriotic generation. But I think that democracy is whether consciously or not, greatly prized by American citizens. And it's because of democracy that you are here and that you received a free, open vote, and that I am here and able to speak to you. And I deeply appreciate both of these, that you are here because you were voted in by myself, my fellow citizens, and I thank you for accepting the confidence that has been put in you. And I thank you that you are continuing my opportunities to be present here. I also thought about democracy has its dark side. holds within it its seeds of its own destruction. That is to say, if citizens take no part in their government, then a government can quickly turn to a dictatorship, and it is being done legitimately because citizens don't care enough or can't be inconvenienced to speak out, to share their point of view with those whom they have elected to be their leaders. So I have appreciated over many years being able to come before the City Council and speak on issues that mattered to me, and to be able to sign in when I came and to speak at the beginning of the meeting. Now I'm entering the ancient stage. Don't let my face fool you. I'm going to be 80 in a couple of years. And so I want to say, from the wisdom that comes from that age, that everything you can do to protect democracy protects you too, of course. And that is perhaps one of the most important things that you do in the seat you're sitting in. So I would ask that you put us first, as you have said you would, as you have agreed you would when you were elected. And let us speak first, too, because of all the diversity that's been spoken of, because of all the issues, but most of all because local government is the heart of democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Yeah. Good evening, Bob.
Robert Colby, a citizen of Sioux Falls. As I've said before in the past, who do you represent? Do you represent your donors? Do you represent those who supported you? Do you represent those who come to the election whether they voted for you or not? Remember, more people did not vote for you than voted for you. How many of you were sentenced to sit in that seat? Not one. You volunteered. And when you volunteered to represent me and everybody else that's behind me and those that are not here this evening. Every action you take, no matter whether it's a law, rule, regulation, whatever, is a trade-off. Because you're giving up something to get something, and it's up to you to look to see whether the trade-off is worth it. Like 20 years ago, I had the opportunity to sit on the county commission. The largest single plant in the United States was lawn grass, and it hasn't changed any. What do we do with it? We water, we fertilize it, we cut it, and we don't do one thing with it. Okay, what does that have to do with this? We are going to a world that has a larger population, and we have to be concerned about food, not only for other countries, but we have people here who are hungry. We have to be concerned about what we are doing with our resources. When I sat on the commission, the mantra was, what's the highest and best use? And to many in the development and economic community, it is commercial property. Sunsets don't count. You can plow a prairie once and you no longer have prairie. You can cut a tree and it takes 30 years to get it back to where it was. Historic buildings once down are no longer historic. Now, if you talk about votes, that you were voted in for your office. As I stand here, I see one of my former commissioners, Commissioner Hayek, who took opportunity to go into the legislature. I can't speak for this part for her, but I can say that as I was elected once, I received more votes for me singularly than all of you got together. That's 35,000 votes, and that was 20 years ago. That in a $5 bill will get you a good cup of coffee at Starbucks. There was a gentleman who came to South Dakota. He registered for Indian land in Gregory. He didn't receive any of it. He went off to do other things. He became a haberdasher and later became President of the United States. It wasn't Donald Trump, it was Harry S. Truman. And remember, you volunteered. And he said, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. I suppose our current president said it in a different way. You're fired. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Hey, man, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Briggs Warren. Council, Mayor Tenhaken, congratulations on winning. So it looks like we're already partway into what's going to be a long night, so I'll keep it short and to the point. Back in 2016, I was able to run with about half of the council in that city council election. One of the privileges of that is we all got to go to many candidate forums and press events, one of which was hosted by the Argus Leader. During those events, I was able to sit and listen to all of your ideas, as well as express my own. One of the things I remember most from the conversations we had and the forums that we attended was the necessity of transparency in government and the engagement of citizens in that government. Moving them to the end under the cover of darkness is cutting them back. I'll let others speak to the necessity of public input. All I have to say tonight is I would hate to see some of you go back on the promises you made to those who voted and elected you. I hope you'll keep your word and fulfill the promises you made to the members who voted for you behind me tonight. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, man. Good evening.
Good evening. I'll be brief because most of it has already been said.
What was your name, ma'am?
My name is Rose Bailey. In December of 2016, I had an opportunity to address the council. The subject then was requesting an enhancement of the city ordinance regarding pets and dogs. And as a result of that public input, our chief of police and the city attorney were able to make changes in that particular city ordinance that was approved by the council. And my purpose this evening is, again, the proposal to amend the city ordinance and the procedure of the council. The city council represents the public, and the public input should be an important consideration in the council action. The time the public has of addressing the council from the beginning of the meeting to the end of the meeting, I find troublesome. A 5-minute address to the city council is a privilege and a courtesy. I ask that, excuse me, I ask that anyone that is given that opportunity to treat it as a privilege and extend that courtesy to the council. By moving it to the end of the meeting is circumventing the intent and the true spirit of the ordinance. It reflects the cavalier attitude and shows disinterest. It shows a discourtesy to your constituents, and it presents a hardship to those that may have something important to say. In 2016, if I had to wait an hour or 2 hours until the end of the meeting, I probably would not have spoken. And consequently, the ordinance may not have been changed. If a problem exists, such as the nuisance or harassment of the council, set some rules. I ask for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. Appreciate that. Evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is James Mitchell, and my wife and I are homeowners in Norton Acres on the northeast side of the city. I have heard that there is some thought in having the public input part of the council meetings being moved from the first part of the meeting to the tail end of the meeting. I would like to point out why this is not a good idea. I am no longer a young man. I will never see 75 again. Sometimes I may have something to say to the council Now, I'm still pretty fresh at 7 o'clock, but by 9 or 10 in the evening, I'm beginning to get a little weary. And I'm not as sharp as I was some hours earlier. By 9:30 p.m., I'm mainly interested in having a nightcap of apricot-flavored brandy and a nice warm bed to rest on. Let's keep the public input part of the council meeting at the beginning of the evening and let us old men get our 2 cents worth in. Let us get a good night's sleep. Thank you so much.
That makes some sense. All right, that makes some good sense.
Rang
Welcome.
a couple of bells, didn't it? My name's Jeff Davis. Appreciate being able to speak before you guys tonight. Congratulations on the new members. I had the privilege of being on an annexation task force here, and we had, what, Rick, 9 meetings, 10 meetings, and at each one of those we had hours of public input, and some of it was rhetorical and repetitive and this and that, but at the end of the deal, it created a process. How many of those people would not have come had it been on the end of the meeting, I don't know. But so factually, I can't say that. Public input can be painful. We don't always hear what we want to hear, but we need to hear it. My concern by putting the public input at the end of the meeting is that unforeseen things will shorten the meeting. The room is scheduled for something else. Councilors have another meeting scheduled to where you'll have to, by virtue of not being able to have the room or whatever the reason is, you'll have to shorten the meeting and thereby shortening the public input. And I think that that can be a natural evolution. It definitely sends a negative message to the people. I believe that public input should be civil and orderly, and I don't think anybody has a right to abuse you. Mayor Tenhaken, I think that you need to wield a powerful gavel, and when something isn't going the right way, I don't think you're obligated to listen to it. I'd rather see a powerful gavel and the machinery handled to control the meeting than make a new set of rules for all the people that weren't breaking the old ones. And I've heard some great things tonight, and it's changed. I can't expound on them more than the people that have already done. But I think we have a great city. I think we have a great group of councilors and a new mayor. I think you need to take a step in the right direction. Control your meetings, and I wouldn't be afraid of that. You have plenty of witnesses, and and I wish you the best, but I would hope that you would leave public input on the front side of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it, man. Good evening.
Hello, my name is Ron Flynn. As a high school principal, I served under several different superintendents, and I can tell you that the ones that stuck closest to the Robert's Rules of Order in our meetings, they seemed to go a lot smoother. And we could finish the business in a shorter amount of time. I've heard a lot of people talk about respect, letting the people speak, and to not do so is a lack of respect. But I think we need to look at the other side of the coin as well. And that means the people that come to a meeting because they want to see what the decisions the board is going to make. And it's disrespectful to them sometimes if they have to wait for several hours for people to speak about things that weren't even on the agenda. Now, maybe you could talk to the Sioux Falls superintendent and ask how they conduct their meetings, but I would imagine that a person can ask to have something put on the board agenda, but if it isn't on the agenda, they don't come and speak about it. And if they want it on the agenda, they give the district an adequate amount of time to let their board members know that a person has requested that this item be placed on the agenda. You know, I think it's important that we try to be respectful to those who are at the meeting to see how the council votes on different things, and also to show some respect for our council members' time. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening. And Mayor, City Council people. I've been coming to City Council for 46 years. I've seen all kinds of councils. I've seen it when it was a 3-person council, I saw it when it was a 5-person council, and I see where we have today. I never minded the public input. I thought it was a great idea until about 3 years ago. And as one of the people that I brought to town, they invested about $40 million in our city. The guy says, do you always have a circus like this in the beginning of your council meetings? And I go, well, tonight was just a little different, and people got a little heated. And you people have given up your time. Bob said it right. You ran. You knew what you're getting into. But you also didn't come to this meeting to be downgraded or called names of or swore at or called liars and cheats. There's not one person I've ever known on the city council that lied or cheated. I've dealt with every one of them. I've had good relationships with them. And I just think we got to get back into respect. Respect, you know, this is a great city. Just look what we've accomplished in the last 10 years. I mean, cities would kill for this kind of successes that your previous commission had, previous mayors have had. And we have everything going for us. And I think the best idea, and I wanted it to the end of the meeting, because I got sick and tired of sitting here. Something wasn't even on the meeting, taking 20 to 30 minutes of people's time that I brought here from out of town to talk about their project that wanted to invest in the deal. Now, I might be selfish. Every one of them got paid. Everybody got their say. But if we're going to say something, you can criticize, but you got to come up with a solution. Don't criticize just to criticize. Say, I think this is wrong and this is how I would fix it. And so tonight what I like to do is tell you, let's try to fix it together. Get the citizens that want to talk. But let's get rid of the non-respect of the city council and the people. Let's try to work together as citizens. We're the friendliest city in America. Let's act like it. And let's make sure everybody works together. And I guess I'm going to change my mind and say, let's put it at the front. And a lot of these people, I mean, Kermit was here for how many years, Kermit? 12 years. Bob sat on council, Ann Hayek sat on the county commission. Were you on planning commission too? Yeah, they're all respected. And, you know, I always didn't agree with Kermit or Bob, but at the same time, I respected what they had to say. And that's what we have to get back to. So that's enough. Thanks.
Thank you, Craig. Great comments. Appreciate it. Good evening, Bob.
Evening, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council and the public. My name is Bob Trzynka. I'm a lawyer here in Sioux Falls. I want to talk a little bit about the proposal to move public input to the end of the city council meetings. Someone earlier talked a little bit about democracy, and South Dakota is one of the few states in the nation that has experimented with what's as close as you can get to direct democracy, in that we have referenda and initiated measures. Democracy actually has a long history. It comes from ancient Greece, and the word that democracy actually comes from is demokratia, which is Greek, and it's actually a composite of two different words, demos and kratos. And demos actually means common people, and kratos means strength. And that really points to the strength of democracy, which is the strength of the common person. And the strength of the common person to be able to express his or her thoughts in a forum, and that there will be people there that will listen, and that that input can affect public policy. And that's the strength of public input. And that's why it's important to keep it at the beginning of these meetings, because it allows the public to give this council input as to what is important to the public without having to go through the process of maybe getting it on the agenda, debating whether it should be on the agenda, getting it nominated. It brings these issues to the attention of the city council and the public in real time. A gentleman earlier talked about the statistics, that 60% of the comments, or 60% of the people who speak, are 7 people. But it's the 40% that are also important too. And as the lady who spoke about her issue with the pet ordinance and the pets ordinances in town, my concern is that if by moving it, public input from the beginning to the end of the city council meeting, we risk losing out on that 40%, on those people who are here for one issue or another. And they may not come. They may not have the motivation to come and make real changes in this government and in this town if they're forced to wait until the very end. And so I would ask that this council reconsider and think about not having public input put to the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate that. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Sue Bird, and I have here to talk about leaving the open talk at the beginning. I have been a long life resident of this city, and I do want to congratulate the mayor and all the new members and the old members of the council for being reelected. And at one time I had some thoughts about running, but that's way before you people were probably all babies when I thought about that. So, but I hope that we can get this together and that we can come together and do what is right for the best for the citizens of this fine city. In the past, some things have been done well, and some not so much. My main reason, as I said earlier, for being here is to address the motion you are considering to change the time for the citizens to speak for their 5 minutes at the end. I feel that this would be a big mistake and a disservice to the citizens who want to address issues. Who knows how long you people are going to talk? I watch you on whatever channel it is and see how you work. And sometimes you're here late, and I feel bad about that, but that's what you chose to do. But if you don't know how long the meeting's gonna how much the meeting's gonna last, I don't feel that people that are parents, people that are working, even myself that's retired or professionals, should have to sit here until you're done with your meeting and then go on with whatever else is gonna happen. I guess I feel it's very condescending to these citizens who want to come here, who want to give their voice to you and their thoughts to you. And it's been part of the responsibility of the citizens who voted to put you here, to expect you to stay. And who knows? I mean, I don't want to stay here when I'm done. I don't want to care how many liquor licenses you pass or how much rezoning you do, which there's never a follow through either. That's a different subject. Could go into that dissertation. And I know in the past that you have special meetings. I don't know if they're secret or if they're just special. But I can speak from experience when Kermit was on the commission, as was Bob Jameson and a few others. We worked very hard to get a street not closed on 11th and Lake. And we had a vote. We had the vote. And then somebody called a meeting to change that behind closed doors. We got a call, a respectful call from Kermit, that this meeting was going on. So I don't know if that still goes on or if it doesn't, but we lost the vote. So I think you need an open door policy, and you need to make sure that you do what the people think that should be done. Let's see. So I would please hope that you would consider leaving the pre-meeting talks first. And I don't know why you want to change them. I think that they're working well, and I guess it's just late for, like the lady before me said, you know, we're old. We're senior citizens. We don't want to be here hanging with you young guys and women till all hours of the night. So I would appreciate it if you would consider leaving it where it is, or making sure that it's done professionally, and reasons why you want to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Appreciate it. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. My name is Nancy Hanson, Mr. Mayor and councilors. I'm here to also speak to the issue of having the public input at the beginning of the meeting. I can see now, after the hour is old, how it may affect your discussion if it's this long. And so I had written up something that would state that this is what would help. The first step that I took, and it doesn't look very fine, was to go to the office of the clerk and print up the current business of the subject of public input. It's a 3-page document, and it has all the tools that you need in order to control the number of the ones that want to speak, in order to control the preservation of strict decorum, which is expected of all folks, including councilors and mayor and the citizens who come forward. I saw up on the screen that you already know that there's a 5-minute limit. I was going to set up my timer so that I don't overspeak. But I think that enforcement of the 5 minutes should be part of the input, and that the people who are coming forward to speak should have a reprint of these document so they know what the rules are, because all the rules are there. And if they knew what the stipulations were about how they could be banned, only that's not the word in the policy, that they could be escorted out if they become belligerent or condescending or swearing, whatever that boisterous behavior might be, perhaps that would put a better handle on what your public input would be at the beginning of the meeting. Limiting it 5 minutes and a half an hour would probably be less stressful for you all, and the folks that don't make it within the half hour can come back the next week. That's the positive thing of having weekly meetings, if it's not something on the agenda. I found it very interesting that in this policy it addresses the fact that public input does not include speaking to ordinance hearings. But that's what we all did tonight. And so you're also doing that, and I would say if you have an issue with the ordinance, come to speak at the ordinance hearing. There are so many ways that the lack of transparency in our government affects all of us common everyday voters and citizens. I live frugally, and I live in the center of the city and love Sioux Falls. I've been on a council, not here, but respect you all very highly for the work that you are doing for our community to build it. The mission statement that is posted on that city's city council link reads this way. The mission of the city is to create an environment for its citizens to build a better life by using resources wisely, managing growth, and providing quality services in a safe and professional manner. I personally feel that that's what we need to do here as well. We want to be safe as citizens. We want to be heard. And if they're not heard, I promise you, those folks are going to keep coming back and being angry. And unless somehow you can come up with a way of delegating that person's concern to somebody in the city level or one of you who's a representative of their neighborhood, somehow get them to feel as though they're heard. So I believe you should either table, or I prefer to keep the input at the beginning, but only with those changes I just spoke of. I really feel as though you want your public to come to you for input, and so I don't quite understand why this is even being discussed today, because that's the way people will give you input. So thank you for your time.
Nancy, thank you. Great comments. Appreciate it.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I don't know what's left to say. Mr. Mayor, City Council, I want to thank you to allow me to speak to you. I came to City of Sioux Falls in 1977. After 10 years in City of Sioux Falls, I went through a lot of struggle in this beautiful city I live. Finally, I made the decision, I gotta make a difference, I gotta make a change. I remember I went to the first mayor, Mayor White, and I told him I am a citizen of this community, I have some challenge in the City of Sioux Falls. Discrimination, racism, many other issues. And he smiled to me, said, "Career, I got only a couple months left. I'm leaving." Then I worked with Gary Hansen for 8 years, and I worked with David for 8 years. And the last administration, I didn't work with him for 1 minute. It's got a reason for it. But with you, Mayor, and new City Council, and all of you, I want to work again and make a difference in the City of Sioux Falls. The last 30 years, I did as much as possible, and I am honored and proud to be part of this City of Sioux Falls with my 5 children, because I call it this is home. And I always introduce myself as a proud Kurdish American citizen and a proud Muslim citizen of City of Sioux Falls. My point isn't there, you as a City Council choose to be a City Council. And imagine our citizen working hard 8 hours, fixing our street, working in John Morrell, working in hard work, but they have some issue, bring it to you. They have some input, they want to bring it to you. But now you want to change a rule, and they have to sit in the back, which they get up 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock and work, they take a shower, they come in here to raise their voice. Then you tell them you sit in the back until 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and then you hear their voice. Did you think that's fair? I don't think so. I really don't think so. You choose to be a City Council. You choose to be a mayor of City of Sioux Falls. We choose to be citizen of this community. And like I said, every day I am proud to be part of the City of Sioux Falls. I've seen 32 states in this country, and I have a lot of opportunity to leave, but I come back in here, I say, this is my home. And I want to make a difference. So please, I know sometimes people is coming in here say some stuff not should be said. And I know some of us as Americans taking freedom for granted. I don't. Because I'm coming from a place we don't have a freedom. So I respect the freedom we have in this country. And I honor it every single day. But at the same time, I'm not a politically correct person. And I know some politicians in City of Sioux Falls don't like me because I never kiss up for them. And I never will kiss up for them. And that's why I created a wonderful organization in City of Sioux Falls, successful. They took it away from community. They took it away from the ethnic community because I didn't kiss up for some people in City Hall and a county commissioner. I hope you guys not be those people. I hope you put the citizen of City of Sioux Falls above everything else because we put you in there. So I just not make sense. This is going on for many, many years in the City of Sioux Falls. Now we're telling our citizen, 1 City Council or 2 City Council, we don't want to listen to you. We listen to you after everything's done. That does not make sense and not make right. I suggest to you guys to have a sign-up sheet in here. You as a city council and the mayor make a decision. We have 40 minutes in the beginning for 8 people to speak, or 30 minutes for 6 people to speak, or 1 hour. First come, first speak. Sign up the sheet. Before the meeting starts, they bring the sheet to the mayor, and you call each individual to come speak. And if somebody disrespected this office, first time you forgive them. A second time disrespected this office, you forgive them again. Third time, you tell them you don't have right to speak anymore. Because the freedom not mean, and freedom of speech does not mean to disrespect anybody else. You bring in your point, you bring in your issue, you bring in your concern, and say thank you and walk away. You listen to it, you not listen to it, that's a different story. So I don't feel as a citizen of this town, working 8-9 hours, and I have a concern about my street, or about my children, or about drug in our community, to come and speak to you, I have to wait in here because some big shot with a lot of money, or have some businesses coming in here, first speak about everything, and we have to sit and wait and wait.
Thank
By
you,
the
Kadir.
time I go home, I am falling asleep already.
I got to stick
Thank
to
you.
my limit. Appreciate your input, man.
Thank you.
Mayor.
You know, James, those other
Yeah,
folks
I'm
were in
gonna go,
line. I'm
'cause,
going to let them go.
I kind of agree with them all.
Oh, okay.
Because a lot of the senior citizens, because at 9 o'clock, before 9 o'clock, the buses stop.
I hear you, man. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nancy Tapkin. I'd also like to congratulate the mayor and the new members. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the next 4 years evolve. So many good speakers tonight. That actually really gives me faith about the public comment section, and I hope it does you as well. The proposal to move the public comments to the end of the meeting, I believe many of you on the council and many of us out here on this side of the podium understand that many people are not going to show up at 9 o'clock for 5 minutes. At best, it will significantly decrease the number of public comments. And when done right and with respect, the public comments are vital. They're so important to this entire process. 5 minutes at 9 p.m. does not fit the life of most of your constituents. It just doesn't. I have to ask myself, who would benefit from moving the public comment section to the end of the meeting? I think someone must if it's on the table. But it's not the citizens, and it's not the city of Sioux Falls. I encourage you to reject this proposal and vote it down. I think that was 2 minutes. It can be done.
I had 1:15, so well done. Thank you for that.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Pam Sabo. I have lived in Sioux Falls most of my life. I'm here to discuss moving the public input from the beginning to the end as well, and I am not in favor of moving it. I'm not going to repeat most of the things that everyone else has said just for time constraints, but I did want to consider a few things. South Dakota has Sioux Falls has really bad winters. It's easy to say, let's move it to the end of the meeting during the summer months, but when it comes to winter, do you really think that people who are elderly or disabled or have kids during the school year want to be up that late at night? I do realize people who are on agenda probably don't want to be up late at night either, but I just feel it would really deter people from coming and speaking, especially in the winter. Also, I did a little research to see how engaged people are when they're at meetings and how long their attention span is. And after 30 minutes, it goes from 84% down to 64%. So if you figure a 2 to 3 hour meeting and you're waiting to the end of it, how engaged will you be then to listen to new input and different ideas? Also, I'm not sure what's on the website as far as meeting minutes, and so I do apologize for not looking into that first, but when people bring up these points, how are they addressed in the minutes? Do they talk about public input on the website in the minute meetings? Because I'd kind of like to know what people bring up to see if it's something that has a pattern where more than one person brings up an issue, and suggest that maybe if more than one person is bringing this up, it should become an agenda item and not something that's held in the public forum. So That's pretty much my input there, and otherwise, I agree with pretty much everything that's said, so thank you and have a good evening.
In here. Good evening.
Good evening. Congratulations, Mayor Tenhaken and council members, for running successful campaigns to volunteer to stay till the end of the meetings and represent us. I appreciate that. A couple of things that I would like to address that.
Can I get your name, ma'am?
Randa Heller. I'm sorry, Randa Heller. In 21 years, I've addressed the council 2 times. I have attempted to contact all the council members beforehand. Some of the council members have responded, some have not. I appreciate the input at the beginning of the meeting before votes are taken, because I feel like then the ones who didn't get back to me, I can actually present my case, even though at a small point. You guys are very tired tonight. I get you at the 64%. We appreciate that you take us at the beginning when you are fresher. You see the agenda items and you kind of know what they're going to be, but to wait until the end to get to get all these comments after the votes are taken, after you're very tired, after it's late. I also, the last time I addressed the city council, I brought my granddaughter. She saw the process. She saw this. We are not Hollywood. This is not the Tony Awards. This can be controlled. And then our kids can see the process. And that is a really good thing, because she said, Nana, I think they listened to you, but a couple of them, I don't think they liked you much. That's part of the process, but it was respectful. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you get your way and sometimes you don't. But again, thank you so much. I would appreciate it very much if you would consider keeping the input at the beginning of the meeting. If you need to change it or control it, I really think you can. I really do. And I thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Randa. Appreciate that. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. My name's John Cunningham. Those who, of my acquaintances, sometimes accuse me of being obsessive about ethics in government. And we've seen ethics be all but evicted from Washington and take too many vacations in Pierre. But in Sioux Falls, we have a good reputation for our ethics. One thing during the campaign gives me pause, and that was the contribution issue. But the optimist in me believes that might have just been something that fell through the cracks in the hectic chaos of a campaign. But in any event, the realist in me says we should all be looking to protect the well-deserved reputation that we have locally and for good government. Concerning the issue of the public speaking, there do seem to be 2 sides to that. One side that you've heard a lot of comments about keeping it at the beginning of the meeting in order to give everybody a chance to speak at a reasonable time of the night. On the other hand, if the reports I read in the press are correct, there are certain people who believe that they must engage in vulgarity, profanity, vitriol, and threats to make their point. And that is not something that children and people with finer sensibilities should be subjected to. So rather than either or, perhaps I would offer this suggestion for you to consider a bifurcated system, including all of the above, where a G-rated section continues as is, and for those who feel that they have to use profanity, vitriol, threats, or whatever to make their point, be offered the opportunity at the end of the meeting to do so, and anybody caught during the G section trying to do that would be moved to the end. And then the only people who would be subjected to that is you. And that's why you get the massive salaries you do. Your sensibilities don't count. So that would be another option. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I couldn't tell if you're joking or not there, actually, toward the end. So appreciate that. Yeah, welcome.
Hi, my name is Ron Brandwright. In reality, I'm relatively new to Sioux Falls. I've only lived here 5 years. I have been before more than one county commission or city commission meeting in other towns. I think the attitude that everyone connected with the city has is directly related to the council members, to the mayor. And I think having the input in the beginning of the meeting, I'm retired. If you look at the number of people who came here and commented, I think the vast majority of them are retired. I think that Sioux Falls is special in many, many ways. I know some of the people on the council. I'm happy to see some of their faces, the face that I voted for. But I think you're all good people. But and to put the public input to the end of a meeting, I think that's an insult. It's like, I believe if anyone is looking at their cell phone during a commission meeting, I think that's an insult. I worked factory work for about 40 years, and I never had my cell phone in the production area. I'll tell you a short story and then I'll let you go. Many, many years ago, I went to the doctor, and I'm in the little waiting room, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting. It's like an hour and a half. Well, what had happened is he had ran next door and delivered a baby that hour and a half that I was sitting there waiting. Well, I wonder if the commission wants to put the public input to the end of the meeting, that possibly you guys are getting paid. Maybe you'd think about paying the public that anyone thinks they should have to sit here for 3, 4, 5 hours to put their 2 cents worth in. I want to tell you, I think Sioux Falls is special. They're good people. Most of the people in any kind of authority for the city of Sioux Falls are more than willing to listen and helpful. But I think putting public comment to the end of a meeting would be a huge mistake. Thank you.
Thank you.
I apologize for the hat, but the overhead lights, they
No
kill
problem.
me. They just kill me, so
Problem.
thank you.
Good evening, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Judy Cook. I've talked in front of you guys probably 4 times, not you, Mayor Ten Hagen, and congratulations.
Thank you.
I just want to say, I think we all learn something when everybody gets a chance to speak first. You'll hear things that you wouldn't know. We hear things that we don't know. I heard a lot of things tonight that I had no clue people felt about. They brought up great issues, and I think that's a lot you'll miss if you don't let us speak first. And I think a lot of people have shown that that's very important, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Carol Flower. I was born in Sioux Falls, and I've spent most of my life in Sioux Falls. And I wanted to come here tonight to just give you a couple thoughts of mine in regard to the public speaking, which I believe strongly should be kept first and not last. I was interested in when I was reading the Argus Leader, there was a quote from one of the council members that said, in effect, well, if people have something really important that they want to say, they should be willing to come later. And I don't know if you realize how difficult it is for some people to actually get up and speak and express themselves and what they believe and what they think, not only emotionally, but physically, as so many of the people that spoke tonight mentioned, you know, kids at home, elderly people, winter hours, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it's important to realize the people who believe that they have something to offer do come. And it's important to let them be heard. Conversely, you could turn the coin aside and say, well, you know, the people that have business that they want to deal with, if it's important to them, they could come last. So the issue is that everybody wants a piece of your time. But one of the things that makes listening to people come and makes it such a treasure is because you get to listen to all these points of view and all these ways of people thinking, and this can impact you and every one of you in a different manner, so that this can affect the way you're going to vote. I think there's one thing that I've learned over and over, and I've seen over and over and over again, is that sometimes all it takes is for one person to say one thing at one moment at a time to affect a change. And so it's very important for you to actually listen to these people that have spoken tonight and give them your support in letting them speak first, so that they have a way of impacting your thoughts on something that may be voted upon later on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Good evening, Scott.
Yeah, Scott Erskine, Sioux Falls. A couple quick points and then a little story time. First thing is, Paul, and we've talked before the election about this, probably remember, and you have, within Robert's Rules of Order, you have much power to control disruption. And I encourage you to do so, as many people did tonight. The second thing I'm going to say is, citizens come here on their own time. And there's a lot of business people who come here to do business. That means they're furthering their business, to make more money. There's even a lot of people who come here who get millions of dollars in tax rebates. You know, I'd be willing to sit in the audience for 4 hours if I was going to get a tax rebate. But that's not why we come here. We're not here for tax rebates. We're not here for liquor licenses. We're not here to do business and to make money. That's why we should be first. And now a little story about that to make you kind of understand it a little bit better. I don't know how long ago this was, but my good friend Pam Nelson, who's been county auditor for a long time. I'm sorry, treasurer. We don't want to get her confused with him. Anyway, she had a problem with lines, and they were getting longer and longer and longer. And Pam was very frustrated at how she needed to fix this. She said, I need more staff. I'm having problems with the state computers. There was lots of issues. But one of the biggest arguments that was put out there, and Pam knew this and why she needed to fix this problem, was that when people have to stand in line and wait for an hour or 2 hours on their own time, that's an extra form of taxation. And when you make citizens sit here for 2 hours while there's people up here making money out of their businesses, you're taxing us. It's a form of taxation for me to sit here for 3 hours waiting for all these business people to come up here and make money, and I'm sitting here paying taxes because I could be doing something else. And so remember that. When you make citizens sit at the back of the line or stand an hour in the driver's license line or whatever line, that's an extra form of taxation. And Pam was reminded that several times, and the reason why she needed to fix it and why she fixed it. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Good evening, Tim.
Tim Stanga. I was one of them sheep way back about 14 years ago. I started coming when Dave Munson was here. Dave Munson was the type of guy that either would answer a question when you talked to him, or he'd say, hey, let me get back to you, and somebody would get back to me the next day. Matter of fact, Mr. Cotter, he'd call me right after the meeting the next day, and we'd get something resolved on what I brought up at the city council meeting. I don't just come here for my health. I come here because people are afraid to come in front of the city council. They just can't talk. My speech teacher's probably rolling around in her grave right now because I was the one in the back seat, way in the corner, underneath my desk because I couldn't talk. And that's just something that I don't have a problem if somebody asks me to come in and ask a question to the city council. Yes, I get opinionated pretty easy. But I brought up, my neighbors had 24 chickens in their backyard. I brought it up at the city council meeting. Boom, it was taken care of the next morning. The city went out, said, wait a minute, you got 24 chickens, you can't have that, that's against the ordinance. I brought up coming down Cliff Avenue, we used to have bark in the center. Cotter called me up the next day, boom, it had concrete. Looks a lot nicer now, coming down Cliff Avenue. My daughter had a birthday party at the park. I brought the issue up that you got to pay to reserve a place at the park. Well, by the time you get there, everything's taken. Not a single person paid. Not a single person had reserved on the park. Well, everybody told me that you're going to go in, you're going to waste your time, you're not going to get your money back. The next day, I got a call from the Parks Department. I got my money back, I got an apology, and plus, there were kids running up and down the big gazebo that the city didn't know about. So that was addressed too. It isn't that I always come in here and try to take it out on you guys, but there's a lot of frustrated people out there. I've sat and I've told the city council and the mayor, the old mayor, you got to watch what you do in this city council meeting, because why? The public's watching you guys too. I've warned you guys on how you guys treat each other. So do we have to write a special ordinance for the city council that if you guys fight amongst each other while we're on TV, what do? Put you to the end of the meeting? We can't do that. But you guys, the city council has to realize, we have a new mayor. I'm willing to give this mayor a chance. Because of one reason. We're not living underneath Huether anymore. This is a new day, a new year. And we have a chance to bring things together. We have a chance to have transparency. We have a chance to have, finally, maybe a city government that is going to tell us the truth. And that's what I want. And I'm willing to work together with any single council. I'm willing to work with the mayor to try to get a lot of issues taken care of in Sioux Falls. Thank you.
Tim, thanks a lot. Good evening, Ann.
Good evening. Hello, I'm Ann Hayek. Thank you. Thank you all for your service. It really is very important, and I thank you. And sitting here tonight, I felt it was important to come down and share a few items in regard to the topic you've been speaking about. Public input is probably the most important thing we have, and you all know that. There is a time and there is a place for it. And I have a lot of concern about the way that the public input has come together here, because people, even tonight, people who wanted to talk to you about public input have left. They've left. They wanted to say their piece and be out. And that is very unfortunate. You have an agenda. I don't know what your agenda has on it tonight, but it's an important agenda. And I know, and Janet Brecky, you were city attorney when I was a city councilor, it was something extremely important. And the people that are placed on that agenda jumped through lots of hoops to be on that agenda. They had to come to meetings with various people in the different departments of the city. They had to possibly be here for first and second reading. They had to pay fees. They had to jump through lots of hoops to get placed on your agenda. And they have been here waiting for that agenda to happen. But unbeknownst to many of them, there were people that got to go ahead of them. I know every single one of us have been places where we were in line for something and someone else catapulted in front of us. And we had been waiting. We'd paid our dues. We had done what we were supposed to do. But someone else got to jump ahead. We thought, oh, maybe they know the manager or whatnot. But we didn't feel good about it. And so this process, I believe, is very broken and needs to be fixed. I think that the people that have done what they're supposed to do to be placed on your agenda need to also be guaranteed that that agenda will proceed. Many of them, although Scott was saying paid a tax rebate, there are many of them, I know, as sitting as a city councilor and a county commissioner, that people have paid to have architects, accountants, attorneys. They are paying them by the hour to come and argue their case. And many times it's very expensive for them. And every minute that they're sitting there, they're getting billed for that professional that they are paying to come in front. So somehow it has to balance. And I'm asking that you look at those people who have really paid their dues to be on that agenda the way that everyone tells them to do it. They have followed the process. And maybe it's, people say 5 minutes. I think you can say what you need to say in 3 minutes, and I hope I can get out of here, but I might not. 3 minutes and be off your way. And then you have 10 people, but maybe do a 30-minute, and then tell the people who have agenda items, you start at 7:30 with that meeting. The other thing is, if you have public input, people leave, and you do the important business and do things that maybe they would have liked to have commented on after they've left. So I do think public comment is extremely important, but I do think the process, as the way that you are doing it now, does good for no one. There are people that like to come and talk, and then they've left. Many of them have left. They didn't stick around. And your business is very important. The people who come in front of you are very important, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ann. Appreciate that. Evening, Tom.
Good evening. Tom Walsh. I want to thank you for serving. It's a pain and it's thankless. But first, I think echo my good friend Craig's manner as far as respect. 90% to 95% of the people that come here have valid issues and concerns and treat you with respect. Changing things because of the 5 or 10% that are disruptive or an inconvenience isn't right. So make the right decision. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate your input. Hi, Sierra.
Sioux Falls. Okay, so I was one of them that was cursing, okay? So when I came here in 2014, we had a dictatorship city. We had a mayor that told me, when you want to address problems, come to public input. Since I used public input, we made arrests on the streets of drugs, prostitution, and we have more going through the court system. I have been quiet these last couple of weeks because mayor has opened up his doors and has called back people, has sent emails to people, and opened up that dictatorship city hall here. Nobody wanted to come and do this. I lost 5 jobs over public input, 5 of them, and I'm still going at it. So does anybody want to come to public input to get fired over their job because they don't supposed to be in a media spotlight? No, absolutely not. But when we had a mayor that sat there and didn't take nobody seriously, and we had drug deals on the street corners and prostitution, and stuff was getting out of hand, and it's still getting out of hand, but the mayor is getting stuff in motion, it was chaoticness. Until you out on these streets with the violence and the gangs and the shooting and the robberies that were taking place, you would see a different side. Why I come up here and try to get through Mayor Uther's head that we need more policemen on the streets. We need to tackle this crime on this sex trafficking and this pimping and this prostitution. So, having said this, I always said public input was very important. So, if nobody decides on what to do, let's do what Janet Breckley says. And on the even days, on the even months, do it at the beginning. On the odds, do it at the odd months. But the reason why I was raising 9 kinds of cane here is because we had some counselors that would sit and laugh because I was sitting here trying to get the police to make arrests. And yes, I've testified in felony court over these pimps and prostitutes, and they weren't taking nothing serious. And then we had a mayor that blocked me from every city official and every city department, which I can get on my phone and start calling now because he still has me blocked. So all these people that want to sit and say profanity, have they sat in a courtroom? I have 14 cases coming up. So before you bash me and before they want to say that, oh, it's Sierra that's making this what it is today, I don't see nobody in the court system testifying on these criminals and out there on these streets fighting this crime and helping the police, being their eyes and their ears. So I say to go ahead and leave public input at the beginning of it, and if not, and if y'all can't compromise on it, do what Janet wanted, was asking at informational and do it every other. But I don't want to come here either, and I'm going to tell the whole public, I won't probably be coming here much either because we have an open city hall now. We don't have a closed dictatorship city hall. And when those doors of City Hall opens, that makes a big issue with people coming to public input every week trying to get something through people's heads here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sierra. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Brian Majers from the Whittier neighborhood. I know I got emails out to some of you. I just want to say that I would suggest that the proposed change is not really the best answer to the challenges and questions surrounding the current public input schedule and rules. It really does appear to be an attempt to lessen public input and discourage citizens from approaching the council. There is an old saying that the answer to any problem with democracy is more democracy. I would suggest that the answer to any problem with the citizen public comment time is more and easier public comment time. If you've noticed, we've now been here an hour and a half, and perhaps if this had been approached, the concept and the talk about public input had been approached a little bit differently, perhaps with a study committee, a study group, citizen input, you wouldn't have taken up an hour and a half of the council's time and having people come here now. There probably was a better way to approach this. So to just make it quick, I would suggest stepping back and tabling this ordinance. Please take the time to form a citizens committee to address the issue of mayoral, city council, and city hall communications and how to best hear from the citizens of Sioux Falls. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate that. Hi, Peter.
Hello. It's good to see you, Mr. Mayor.
You.
I am honored to have the privilege with speaking with the City Council here in Sioux Falls and Mayor Paulton Haken. I come here in a spirit of friendship and to open hearts and minds. I know this is a divisive issue. I know our City Council has struggled with divisiveness either between the City Councilors or out here in the public. There's some blame to go around for everyone. When it comes to talking and exercising our First Amendment rights here at public input, yes, there can be better, but I don't think the outliers should be left to blame for the majority's actions. And I'll just go through my points here quickly. I think we could all use a 5-hour energy at this point. Basically, the reason that the public, before it fails, start here. If this is initiative to move public input to the end of the meeting was something that the city council members would like to move, it probably should have been handled differently. There should have been working sessions. People should have contacted the public. We should get a couple of op-eds in the Argus. Let's hear from people. Let's see what's going on. The way it's been approached to handle this issue is not great. The history is that 16 years ago, we had a unanimous 8-councilor decision to move public input to the front. Now, behind the scenes, you all know how difficult it is to get agreement or a majority vote on anything, let alone a unanimous vote. That change has been mostly positive. I'm not sure the councilors 60 years ago could imagine the amount of opportunity to speak publicly with media and technology. Facebook, that's a big one around here in Sioux Falls. The blessings of free speech now are great. I know it's uncomfortable. People that come up aren't always looking as well as they should. They aren't as used to public speaking. For many, it's a very hard struggle. I know as a person with a physical disability that it does take a lot of energy to get up here, and it would take even more energy to wait to the end. We wouldn't be in this situation. The public is a bit like an abused animal. We're so used to being thrown under the bus with issues like the Copper Lounge collapse and everything we learned about a certain contracting company here in Sioux Falls. Things like the administration building, things like the event center siding. The public has been mistreated, and so it makes us very sensitive to this issue, hence the large response. I look forward greatly to everything the City Council and the Mayor will do. I love the idea of the narcotics squad. I like many of the initiatives that you're planning to move forward with now, and I heartily would like to support them. If you would like to make a change to public input, I would recommend maybe pursuing a compromise. An idea that my friend Scott Erisman had was that we would move public input to the same spot as our county does, which is after the consent and alcohol licensing, but right before regular business. Another idea, people were worried about people that had to wait for public board appointments. So maybe we could move the public board appointments to the beginning of the meeting too. I think this would be a reasonable compromise that would make many people happy here. I would just like lastly to say that this last year I've gotten to know several of the councilors, and I've been impressed with their integrity. I've been impressed with their honesty and their hard work and efforts. It was an honor to work on the mayor's campaign and to meet his family. I knew I had made the right decision supporting our current mayor when at the night he was elected, he had got the call from the wonderful Jolene Locher that he had basically won the election. His first thing he did was he grabbed his family and he grabbed his wife, and they had everyone, okay, get out of here, everyone. It was just Mr. Tenhaken and his family. And in my heart, I knew I just supported the right guy. Let's move forward in a spirit of integrity and honesty and free speech. And as comfortable as this can be and as hard as it seems, it is the right way to go. And we will all benefit from it, and we will all be the more happier for it. Let's not move forward with the first thing what the new mayor does is end public input and put it at the end of the meeting. That's not a wise move. It kind of makes it seem like the new boss is the same as the old boss. And
Thanks,
so,
Peter. I appreciate it,
you.
man. Thanks for being here. Good evening.
My name is Dan Daly. I live in Northwest Sioux Falls. I'm impromptu. I don't have anything prepared. What I'm hearing is some good suggestions. 5-minute limit, maybe just 3, and then request an extra 2 minutes. Sign in, speak to one topic only. All of this combined is what we've gotten tonight. Everyone's input is your committee. I am more or less a dissenter. I sued the city. I took you to state Supreme Court. Cost me $40,000. I wasn't reimbursed. I won. I proved the city was unconstitutional. I gave a presentation regarding the siding on the event center. I gave it, I'm an engineer, but I gave it because the presenter was thrown in jail because he was going to give it. I was the backup. We need to do something about city government. Strong mayor is a dictatorship. Depends upon how you use it. If you want to move public comment to the end, it's going to make it easy for me to get petition signatures to change government. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Hey, Bruce.
Bruce Danielson. Everybody's just been absolutely amazing tonight. All the different points of view only just starts touching the surface of this ridiculous proposal that's being put in tonight. As the previous speaker said, you know, we've wasted an hour and a half. You guys could have been home by now with the length of this agenda if this proposal had never been thrown out here. Just prior to the meeting started, well, in the last couple of days, I guess I've been thinking about the 6,400 that got signed and cheated out of a vote on the administration building. We had a ramrodding city government. If you didn't like the way that government wanted to do things, that administrator wanted to do things, by God, you get thrown in jail, you get hit, you get just about anything that you can imagine. We went through it as citizens, and I'm not the only one. And we're looking at this thing tonight. We just went through a situation where during the heat of the election campaign, the rules got changed on the election. Do you know how upset the 6,400 are on that? It's not stopping. This thing that's going on tonight is just another continuation of all of that crap that's gone on. And so I've been passing around a clipboard tonight, and I'm going to be doing a lot more with it in the next few days. And there's going to be a group of us getting together to decide what we're going to do with this city government. Because those 6,400 are ready to sign anything that we put together. And I want to make it good. I want to make it solid. If this thing goes through tonight, just be ready for some fun coming up. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Anyone else? Well, if not, I would just like to say thank you for the great comments, cordial comments, respectful comments for the most part, and I appreciate all the input on this topic. And so I know it was asking a lot for you to stay this long, so thank you for being here and for your respect tonight to this group. Let's move on to item 8.
Item 8, set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, June 19, 2018 at 7 p.m. for item 8. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, updating ordinance number 52-17, declaring certain real property of the city surplus and authorizing the disposition thereof.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Mark Cotter with the Office of Public Works. This is an item that involves when the City of Sioux Falls owns a piece of land, there is a process that we undertake to dispose of it when we no longer have a need for it. So the area that this involves is a few years back, the intersection of 8th Street and Cliff Avenue as an offset intersection was plagued annually with a number of accidents, and so we put together a project to realign that intersection. The flower box and then an adjacent residential home was purchased to make sure we could gain the necessary right-of-way and make those public improvements. That project went really well. We've also set aside necessary land for a future right turn lane, bus stop, and a gateway sign that will come into the downtown on 8th Street. So this parcel of land is in the northwest corner of 8th and Cliff. It originally was a residential lot. After we take out the land for a future right turn lane, it's a fairly small parcel of land. It's about just under 7,000 square feet. Last year we brought this item forward to you to surplus it. We had an appraisal at that time of about $55,000. Ultimately went out for sealed bids and only received one bid and received about less than 1/10 of that amount. We didn't want to bring that proposal to you, so we sat on it for a period of time, engaged a different appraiser to really take a thoughtful look at, based on that bid environment and really what the ultimate use of that land will be. We engaged that. We do have an updated appraisal. They think that that land is worth about $21,000. And so this is the first reading to take this forward. With your support, after second reading, we'd go out for sealed bids and attempt to get a higher bid than the original time frame.
Got it. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Questions for Mark from the council? If not, I'd look for a motion to set a date of hearing and second reading for June 19 at 7 p.m. for this item.
Move to approve.
Second, Staley.
Motion to approve by Councilor Kiley, seconded by Councilor Staley. Any debate or discussion? If not, roll call vote on that motion, please.
Council members Kiley?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
That passes 7-0. Next item, number 9.
Set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, June 19, 2018 at 7 p.m. for item 9. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 30, City Council, Subchapter, Organization and Procedure, Section 30.013, Order of Business.
Councilor Selberg, you want to speak to this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I want to thank those of you who are in the audience who took your time tonight to come out and speak to this, those who are watching tonight, those who have reached out over the last few days, and there's been a lot of you on both sides, and it's heartfelt, and that's fantastic, and quite frankly, that's one of the reasons this was brought up. It was time to have the conversation. This particular subject's been hanging out there for quite some time. So, first and foremost, as I've said repeatedly over the last few days, and I'll repeat a couple things because there's been plenty out there in the media already, I am a firm believer in public input. It is vital. The people's voices need to be heard. Absolutely. But there are a number of reasons why I believe its place in our agenda should be adjusted, and I'll highlight kind of the couple things I've touched on, but I'll keep it short tonight as we've got a lot of people speaking, I'm sure, up here as well. As we've said, we have citizens who have to be here to conduct business on the evening's agenda. As one of the folks who got up today said, you know, they've jumped through some hoops to be here. Sometimes they have to wait up to an hour or an hour and a half for us to get to the business at hand. We have folks who cover our meetings so they can report to those who can't be here or watch on what went on in their city government. On many occasions, they are pushed right up or past their deadlines needed to put together a thorough analysis to report to the citizens. This isn't a concern for a business and them making a profit. This is a concern of a service that they are providing to citizens that are also engaged in their city government and want to know what went on that evening. And as I've repeated, you just simply roll the tape. We've had a number of instances ranging on anything from heckling to outbursts to incomprehensible and, yes, sometimes profane input. And at the time these things happen in a meeting, generally we are having people that are here to do business. We might have people here for proclamations. We've had Boy Scout troops. We've had baseball teams. We've had kids here, and they've seen, as I've said before, some not too family-friendly programming. Now, sometimes people might be not that concerned about that type of thing. My daughters right now are 19 and 20 years old, and for some reason they watch city council meetings on occasion. And I'm not that worried about what they're going to see, but if they were 7 or 8, you can be sure that I would not have them in here at that time of the day, that time of the meeting. With that in mind, I believe the time has come to have this conversation, and let's be clear. This ordinance does not shut down public input. It does not shorten public input. You do not have to sign in to do public input. You don't have to do a handstand to do public input. Nothing about any of the time that you have or the rights that you have to speak are changing. It is simply moving it from here to here on the schedule. We will be here to hear you, and we want to hear you. Public input is a big part of our job, and a percentage of that is here, but I can tell you a real big percentage is in the emails, the texts, and the phone calls that we all get for the rest of the week, too. It's part of our job. We love it, or we wouldn't do it. We answer to you people. You elected us. So I would just say that the one other thing that I would throw out there, I know a gentleman here that I served on the annexation task force with. Those of you who might watch some past city council meetings, I would encourage you to watch some of those annexation task force meetings from last year. I do believe we had 6 or 7, and he had mentioned that the public input portion was pretty hearty. I think we had 15, 20, if not more people speak at every meeting. And I will tell you that the public input part of those meetings was at the end of the meeting. So I would say in summary, it's time to have the conversation. However this turns out, yay or nay, when this is all said and done, the time it's come to kind of clear the air. Where are we going to have this? The vote will come up for now, but that is why we have it in front of us tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Neitzert.
I do have some other things I wanted to say, but I just wanted to cover a couple of things that I did here that I think are important. First of all, there's a lot of valid points. There's good arguments on both sides. Notwithstanding the denigration of the people who invest in this community, which was very unfortunate, I think we ought to be thanking them, not denigrating them. But the thing, I totally get the idea that those who come for general public input yourselves, you would have to wait in cases where we have an agenda. Totally get it. Totally understand. I feel that sympathy. However, I think there's a voice that isn't being heard tonight, and I just want to give you an example. Let's say, for example, on the agenda tonight, we had a rezoning or a casino or something like that. What if somebody that lives right next door to that is elderly? What if we were voting on paratransit rates? What if they were, what if somebody disabled wanted to come and talk about that? They come at 7 o'clock, and we're pushing up on 9 o'clock. So I mean, and those are immediate concerns for them. That would be the last vote. It's the last stop on the train. So I mean, it works both ways. So as much as anybody who's giving general input is inconvenienced on something, by the way, it's not final action that night. Other people are inconvenienced as well, and it's not just rich developers. We have lots of people that are very normal, regular citizens that aren't rich that come in here with valid concerns, and they're very concerned about their neighborhood or their property values. And it's just like they've just been totally discarded, and it's just assumed that nobody comes to an agenda item unless they're a wealthy developer who has something to gain, or they're getting paid $500 an hour. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have come for an agenda item yourself that you were concerned about. And does anybody care about those citizens? They've just been totally, thrown to the side. This is a really tough one, and I'll say, for those who have already come out against it, I would like to see some concrete solutions, not just carping. Show me something different. I mean, I heard a lot of stuff from citizens that actually make some sense. But when these discussions have been had in the past, it's been totally shut down by the other side. We're not doing this, we're not doing this, we're not doing this, we're not changing anything. What we have now is set in stone on tablets that came from on high. We're not changing it. So somebody has got to give me something. The other thing that I want to point out, and I don't normally do this, but somebody referenced an email that I had written back to them, and I usually don't do this, but I wrote it, and it misrepresented my position, so I just want to read it for you because it was stated that something about that I was, thought that business people should go first. So I'm just going to read it, and I won't say their name. I am pretty swamped with emails on both sides of this issue. I will speak at length to this tonight. There are valid pros and cons. While there are over-the-top accusations that this would suppress people, it's really a simple question. Do we handle business first, that would be council business, or general public input on anything people want to talk about not on the agenda? Regardless, someone will have to wait. If input is first, those they're concerned about an item that affects them, like a casino going in near them, have to wait to talk to that item. If general input is last, those wishing to speak on items not on the agenda have to wait. Regardless, some citizen have to wait. The question is who? That fact is getting lost in all of this. There seems to be an impression that no one from the public wants to talk about agenda items. They certainly do. They impact them greatly and are being acted upon. So, of anything, they are most urgent. So my consideration of what to do will be based on other factors, and I'm still weighing those. I didn't bring it forward, but in short, I think it's partly people with business or concerns about items having to wait excessively, and a significant amount of public who have been telling us for months it has got out of hand with either outbursts or using it for a personal platform that has no relation to city business. So I certainly wasn't saying let's push the citizens to the back so we can bring the wealthy developers up first because they paid to play. That's certainly not it. I'm just saying that we all need to think about this goes both ways. There are citizens who have valid concerns, and it's the last stop on their bus. And so no matter what, somebody has to wait. And maybe in closing, let's say that you're item number 23 on the agenda. There's 23 rezonings. Have they been disenfranchised? Should they be moved up to the front? Everybody wants to be at the front. Not everybody can be at the front. So I'm just asking that we just try to consider that there are citizens affected no matter what we do. Thank you.
Councilor Neitzer, thank you. Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been a long night, and I appreciate every one of you being here this evening to share your concerns. What we're faced with tonight, well, one thing first that I want to do before I get into that is that sometimes several people pointed this out. Public input is required by the state legislature. It's an agenda item. You're on the agenda. You get the right to address your council. It's a requirement of what we do, and when we put it on the agenda is up to us. So what we're faced with tonight is, do we set a date of hearing and a second reading for next week? And really what that comes down to me, I've said it often, is that I find it very important often to always support a first reading because it allows us to move to a second reading and have a discussion. With the exception, is this proposal ready for final action by this council next week? And my position is, and I'm going to vote against setting the date of hearing because I don't believe this is ready. We haven't had a thorough conversation as a council. We've had some really great suggestions tonight of some things that we can do. We've sent a message to the public and to explain to them that we do expect a quorum. We expect to be treated with respect, just like you deserve to be treated with respect. And that hasn't always gone the way it should in the last 2 years that I've been on the council. I haven't been happy with people being mocked or looked down to or poked at when they came up for public input. And often there were times where people were bullied when they were at this podium. And they left and they showed that displeasure of being treated poorly. And I'm going to, again, vote against moving forward. But I'm not against finding some ways to continue good decorum. And that starts with us at the dais and treating our citizens with respect when they take the time to come and address us. And they deserve that spot on the agenda, not because the state legislature requires it. It's what we should require as public servants and people who work for you, the citizens of Sioux Falls. So I hope I can encourage the rest of us that we can find a better way of maybe fixing a problem that I'm not sure exists, but if it does, I think we need to have that discussion amongst ourselves, either at a committee meeting or a working session, an informational that we had this afternoon. We got some really great input this afternoon on some issues that went a whole different direction than I expected it to do. And we need to do that, and we're not ready to move forward with second reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Starr. Other input from councilors?
I would raise my voice in agreement with Councilor Starr. I intend to not vote to move this forward. I will tell all of you folks, and I do thank you so much for your testimony tonight. It was amazing. The solutions are right there laid out before us. The problem here was that this ordinance proposal came down to this council in a very bad way. And I was so discouraged when I saw it. My first reaction to it was, this is terrible timing. We have a brand new mayor with a brand new style and has made a lot of commitments already to open up this government, and I know that's his dream. And so why are we discussing this right now with all of you when we have not even had a chance to discuss it as a full council? This ordinance was placed on agenda for a vote without having a working session, without having an informational meeting. None of the vehicles that are available to this council, then the own council structure that they've set up, we've set up, were not utilized. Now, why is that? So I'm upset about that, and I've made my voice known to my fellow council members. This is no way to tackle a full-blown problem when you know you've got a full-blown problem, which we do, without having the council sit down together in a collaborative working session and talk about this. I think we would have come up with some of the ideas that you folks came up with for us. In fact, I came up with a compromise position because I was so angry about this ordinance that I threw out another ordinance, because if this does go through tonight, I want to have some choices. And I do not want to be stuck with this only being the choice that I have to vote up or down on whether or not, that there is public input moved to the back. And so the choice I threw out was an alternative proposal where it would be even and odd months. There's 6 even months, 6 odd months. Public input would rotate. Once every other month it'd be in the front and the other months would be in the back. I don't like that proposal. Quite frankly, I want to leave it the way it is. But I'll be darned if I was going to come in on a second reading on this thing and be told I had to vote this up or down. There was no other choices, and never have a chance to collaborate with my council members and try to come up with the solutions you guys just laid out before us. The answers are all there. Plus, if we sat down and talked, I'm sure we could come up with something not only just about public input, but some of the other issues that we have with our meetings, like cell phones being used at meetings, whether that should happen, some of the other things. How are we going to manage ourselves to prove to you, the public, that things have really changed in City Hall? If nothing else, this has created an opportunity to do that. But I do not want to see this to go to second reading, so it's an easy no vote for me. I do want to have this, this move to a process where we have a working session. If that doesn't happen, then I've got my other ordinance, and it'll be up for a first read at the second time this is up, at the time that this is up for a second read, and there will be an informational discuss that one. So we will be discussing this issue in an open collaborative effort with this council.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Staley.
I have a letter. I had a conversation with Dave Munson today, our former mayor, And the public input was moved to the front of the meeting under his tenure, if you remember him, about started 16 or so years ago. And first of all, my stance is the citizens are our business. The citizens is just as important as anything when it comes to dealing with this government. But and there's copies of his letter over there if you'd like it. But Dave sent this in, and he said, Teresa, you can read this at the meeting. I wanted him to come, but he's going to have surgery on his I think it's his hip. He said, I would like to respectfully ask that you would continue public input at the beginning of the council meetings as it has been since 2002. My suggestion would be to manage public input. The topic citizens wishing to address the council must be germane to city issues. The citizens addressing the council must be respectful and not get personal by naming individuals, not using profanity or derogatory language. Be respectful of the 5 minutes. One additional thought, you may want to consider a timer at the podium. You could have a clock or get green, yellow, and red lights. Personally, I think a clock would suffice. You have my approval to share my thoughts, sent from Dave Munson. And I can tell you, I've came to public input many times with Dave Munson, and I saw that man gaveling people down. And he wasn't afraid to use that gavel to keep order in the court. But first of all, I want to apologize to the public for having to be here tonight. I thank you for coming. I thank you for your passion in standing up for your rights, for this wonderful opportunity that you've had. And I am very disappointed in how this came about, because here we have a new mayor, we have new council members. I've been very excited about a new era of openness and responsiveness for our people. I think people want to have more of a voice and not less of one. And so I was disappointed last Thursday when I got a text from Councilor Marshall Selberg saying, hey, by the way, giving you a heads up, I'm bringing a reading next Tuesday to move public input to the back of the meeting, to the end. And I said, why? Now granted, I mean, I have not had any people come up to me ever and say, let's move public input to the end. Are people calling, maybe people talking conversations about certain individuals? We got some repeat offenders, so to speak. Yes, they've come back. We have people who have some issues that need to be addressed. Yes. I think we could deal with that. We could talk about that. Have there been people who have been disruptive and used profanity? Yes. They needed to be gavelled and removed. You set up a standard. But for the majority of people who've come in, many of them have legitimate concerns. And making them sit to the end of the meeting, is it 9:30, is it 10 o'clock? We don't really know. That will be a hardship to them. And so what I'm hearing from my colleagues, I'm saying, why are we doing this? And so far what I've heard is one of the reasons is we're going to help the media. And the media has told me that they have been asked by council members, would you like this moved to the end of the meeting? Would that help you? And as citizens are listening, I don't know how you would feel about your issues getting in the way of the media having their 10 o'clock news. I don't know that that's something that it's going to resonate with our citizens. I'm hearing people say that some individuals use this as a platform for their message. And in that instance, if we had a working session, we could throw out these ideas and say, maybe we do limit your appearance here to once a month. I'd be open to that. You know, we can have some kind of a way of limiting the repeat guests that we have. I don't know. I'm just saying we could brainstorm. But saying that we're going to have a free-flowing sharing of ideas, which Councilor Selberg said to me last week, we could talk about this at the meeting. We have a gun pointed at our head right now. It's called a vote. We're going to be voting to put this through to a second reading next week. This was done very quickly. It was ramrodded. So this is not a working session here. This is not a brainstorming, free-flowing session. This is a moving train. And we're being told, well, you can talk about the destination at the meeting. Well, no, the train is moving, and it's moving towards a vote that's going to move the council to the end of the meeting. So I am so appreciative that our new mayor has allowed us to have this long public input time, which, by the way, since I've been elected, the longest time we had for public input was the Icon Lounge, and it was Councilor Rick Kiley who allowed that to happen. Those people poured in here, I think it was about an hour and 25 minutes. Generally, we have super citizen awards, which, by the way, if this passes, and we're going to move all the citizens and their concerns to the back of the meeting, we need to move all of the accolades that we're giving citizens to the back of the meeting as well. Because that would not be right to say, you're getting some praise over here, you can come first. But those of you who have a concern about, a big pothole in your street that's swallowing your car up that won't be addressed, you stay at the end of the line. We're going to have to treat everyone fairly. But anyway, I can't remember. I lots of things on my mind, but I'm so appreciative you came. I'm hoping that we can vote this down tonight and that we can bring it back. I want to talk about it. I'm willing to compromise. I'm committed to letting you guys have a time that's reasonable and that is going to allow you to have your voices heard in a respectful way. And I think everyone tonight here would say that they agree with that. And we've gotten lots of emails. I'll tell you what, I want to know, where are those people, Councilor Neitzert, where are those people who have had the agenda items who've had to wait? Where are they tonight? They should be here. They should be emailing us saying, hey, let's put the public input to the back because we came that one time to have a rezone and we had to wait an hour. I haven't heard from them. So I would say if this passes, those people need to come to the forefront so that it's not just the council members carrying water for them, but that we're actually hearing from those citizens that say that they have to take ownership for that.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Sale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, I'd like to just point out one fact, that the number one fear that people have is public speaking. My fear of that was so great that years ago I took the Toastmasters class to overcome that. So I really do appreciate you people that have the courage to get up and speak. I have a very good friend of mine that's a very successful businessman in Sioux Falls, and he has told me time and time again, it's intimidating to speak in front of the city council. So I really appreciate that. This last year I had the opportunity to knock on hundreds and hundreds of doors in Sioux Falls in the Central District, and I heard a lot about public input. People love it or they hate it. And people have told me that it's sometimes so embarrassing, and other people have said, we get popcorn and we watch. So it's become entertainment to them, and I understand that. A little bit of background that if you don't know, for years and years, I have chaired many meetings. They've been union meetings for the firefighters, the AFL-CIO. We always had the good and welfare at the end of the meetings. That's what our Atwood's rules, which are similar to Robert's rules, always called for. So that's where I come from when we talk about this. I personally have driven to Pierre to corner my legislators to try and talk to them. Inconvenient? Yes. But it's a passion that you have for the topic. If it's so inconvenient for you to come at 9 o'clock, it's inconvenient for somebody else to come at 10 o'clock. So I'm going to vote for this to move it forward, that we can get this thing handled. And I appreciate people that are able to take on a sticky situation like this. The sky is not falling. We will just have public input. It'll be at the end of the meeting. If it's important to you, come at the end of the meeting. Sit through it like everybody's going to have to do tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Sale. Councilor Kiley.
Thank you. And I'll try to make this short, not because it's the hour's late or anything of that nature. It is 9:15. We've sat through longer meetings, and I'm sure we're going to sit through some longer meetings in the future as well. My signing on to this is in no way an attempt to hassle citizens or to make it more difficult to address their public officials. They can do that in the evening meetings as we have done here. They will certainly be able to do that in more meetings in the very near future with our committee meetings and our informational meetings. And I'm just trying to address some of the things that I've heard tonight. And again, I thank each and every one of you for being here this evening and for taking time to express your opinion, whether it is the same as mine or different. I do value your input. Public input is having it set for the end of the meeting is not an attempt so that we can have a first reading and pass it, so that you don't have an opportunity to speak. Actually, you will still have that. In fact, there's never a time where we can make a final decision on a topic without having public input before doing that. You would have your public input after the first reading. You'd actually potentially be better prepared to counter some of our discussion points as a result of having the advantage of sitting through that at that point in time. And then you would have the opportunity again at the second reading before the vote's taken. If it's a resolution, you're going to always have the opportunity to present publicly before we vote on any resolution. I have no illusions that it's going to shorten meetings. My support of this proposed change has nothing to do with shorter meetings. Mr. Colby's absolutely right. I volunteered to do this. I knew when I ran 4 years ago, and then when I decided to run for re-election, that my Tuesday nights are going to be spent here in Carnegie Town Hall. And I'm prepared to spend as much time as is needed to do the business of the city. And yes, the citizens are our business. And I will address that a little bit more later here. I'll have to say, I heard a mention of a 5-hour energy drink, but the one that really got my attention was the nightcap, but I'm just going to elect to pass over that one here for now. But Sioux Falls is special. It's filled with special individuals, and it takes all kinds to make a community. A community is the people. It's not the streets. It's not even the parks. It's not the buildings. It's the people that reside within the community. And yes, we have business people that have items on the agenda. They're citizens too. And it has been mentioned that they have jumped through hoops to get on the agenda. Some would say, well, that's the price of doing business. And I might be one that would say that. That is the price of doing business. You better be prepared to put in the time. My father worked at John Morrell for 36 years. So I'm certainly not one that came from a family that had an abundance of money. I truly appreciate everything the city of Sioux Falls has offered me and my family as I raised my family and as I grew up in this city. And I am committed to ensuring that others have that same opportunity too. So my support of this is not to shorten meetings, not to make it more difficult to hear people, but it has a lot to do, and it doesn't have anything to do with the media either, quite frankly. It has everything to do with running an effective and efficient meeting and being respectful, as Councilor Neitzer and others this evening have stated, of the citizens that do wish to testify on the agenda items that are on our agenda for the evening. They are citizens every bit as much as the other individuals that want to present at the beginning of the meeting. And as Councilor Neitzer said, somebody goes first, somebody's going to go last. That's always the case. I'm more interested in running an efficient and effective meeting and being respectful of those individuals. And those of you who have attended meetings that I have conducted, the Annexation Task Force meetings, the ICON meeting, other meetings that I chaired during the mayor's absence, know that I am respectful of public input and willing to take the time to hear what you have to say. And there are a lot of ways that you can address your council in addition to public input. You can contact any one of us at any time And then we will go forward with whatever the issue is or the item is, and we contact the individuals at the director level or at the staff level to have an impact for you and to assist you if at all possible. So I do agree with former council member Hayek, former Commissioner Hayek, former legislator Hayek, former everything, that there is a process. And it's not, this isn't even about the decorum, because believe me, in the final months of the previous administration, I looked into the issue of decorum, and it's not an easy issue to actually control, because there is something that we call freedom of speech, and it's there for a reason. It's protected for a reason. So while it's easy to say we should do this, or say you can't cuss and swear, the reality is it's not as easy to come up with rules and regulations or ordinances that can regulate somebody's freedom of speech. No, I don't always like what I have to hear. But I'm willing to sit through it and listen to it and analyze the information on both sides of the issue before I make decisions. The problem does exist. Whether this is a bad way of approaching it, whether we should have had a working session or an informational, or whether it was ramrodded, I don't think this was ramrodded any more than the way that the Parks Board districting suggestion was brought forward, any more than rescinding the funding on the administration or the mixed-use parking was brought forward. And I'm not criticizing the way in which those were brought forward, because that was the councilor's right to follow the process that is in place. So this is, my intention is purely with to have an effective and to have an efficient meeting, and to be respectful for those citizens that do wish to present on the other agenda items that have no idea presently how long it's going to take. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Kiley. Councilor Staley.
Well, first of all, the Park Board redistricting thing that Councilor Kiley references, let me tell you what happened with that. Last summer, I spent weeks meeting with every council member, showing them my proposal to give every district in our community a representative on the Park Board. I met with them, I asked them what they thought. Then I had to go before the Park Board and present it. And I called it the ambush at the Arboretum, because they were all waiting for me there. And I had me against the Park Board, showing them what I thought we should be doing for the citizens. And then we went into the first reading and second reading here. So to say that that lacked of due process is not an accurate statement whatsoever.
Councilor, I did not make that statement. I said you had the right.
You said that this has
Councilor
had
Kiley, Councilor Staley has the floor.
You said this has had the same vetting process. What's happening right now is that Park Board thing. This should have been done in a whole different way, where we were able to discuss this and have it out for the citizens. It happened. It was presented Thursday. We're talking about it today, and it's going to be voted on next week. And citizens, I'm sorry to tell you, but I think it's going to happen. And it's going to be very sad. And for the last 16 years, we have had public input at the beginning of the meeting. There's not a problem with it. And once again, I say, where are those people who have the problem that they're talking about that have had to wait? Where are those people here tonight? Why haven't they emailed me? All the people who've had their first and second readings listened to. The other thing that the citizens have to realize, and I hope this isn't a backlash on what I've been doing with reaching out to people, but we have what we call resolutions, we have first readings, and we have conditional use permit hearings. What I have done in the past is I reach out to those people and say, hey, your hearing is going to be on, let's say, June 16th. Why don't you come into our public input 2 weeks before, and you can talk with us if you want to. Or, give us the information ahead of time. They've used this public input time to present that to us. And it's been so helpful because we have a chance to vet that out. We can go out and drive past their homes. We can listen to them. We can get the information. The city will tell you, citizens, you can address your city council on the second reading. Well, guess what? That's too late. Too late. We don't have a chance to do our homework. So This is the one opportunity people have right now at the beginning of the meeting to address their council, and many of the people who spoke today have been before us with instances that will be addressed, that had been addressed later on. So to say that this is only being used by people who are trying to grandstand or swear at us is an inaccuracy. There is not a problem. They're making it sound like this is something that is life or death, that our city is going to collapse if we don't get this public input thing fixed now. And again, I just have to say, I'm so sorry, Mayor, that this has happened. Councilor Christine Erickson said to me, because I will tell you, it was a rough time with Huether. She said, Councilor Staley, we're going to press the reset button. We're going to get more collaboration and cooperation in the council. And last week, I was feeling so hopeful about it, and then Councilor Selberg calls with this first reading. And I'm afraid it's going to rip our city apart. I'm so sorry about that. But this is going to become a class warfare of the average citizens versus whoever, if it's developers or whatever it is. And you guys can try to say it has nothing to do with public input or when they speak, but that's like saying, hey, you can speak for public input, but you're going to have to climb a ladder to the heavens to get there. But we're offering it to you. So it doesn't make any sense. Again, I think it's probably going to pass. And to Councilor Sales' point, yes, he was working in a union situation, union members together. Hey, we'll let this closed group, you speak at the end of the meeting, union members. That wasn't dealing with people coming in from the public who wanted to say something. We're talking about a whole group of people. We're growing larger, and yet we're limiting and cutting back on public input. I think it's really very, very sad.
Thanks. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Neitzer.
I would agree the city is being ripped apart, and I would say a large part of it would be posts on Facebook and other media things that are hyperbolic and pit people as rich against poor and accuse some of us of doing things for quote-unquote rich people. Once again, it's very ironic. Next week will be a second reading if this passes, which therefore means apparently all of you citizens are dismissed and you don't matter once second reading comes by, from what I'm hearing. Public inputters matter, citizens that come to a second reading. Rich developers, doesn't matter. Who cares? How many times have we seen items come where there's citizens that care about it? And once again, I don't check to see what your balance is in your checkbook. I don't care. It's really irrelevant. As far as the media, this is just a common sense thing, and it's one thing I have thought about it, and it's something I have considered. And here's kind of the thought process. The media obviously has to hit a certain time frame to get something on the news. It's why, for example, they would prefer, obviously they don't tell us, but they would prefer that you did a press conference at 11 in the morning, not 4 in the afternoon, because that can hit all the news cycles. Most people don't watch council meetings. They don't have time. They have busy lives. I don't hold that against them. They have a lot of stuff going on. They count on watching the news to get their information. And so when we have, for example, some nights where input might go for a long time, it's important to those citizens. I totally get that. But some important issue that they were going to report, it happens where it's either doesn't get run or it's 30 seconds instead of 2 minutes. And so thousands of people also miss out on that. So there's a balance. There's a balance. It's trying to figure out what is the best thing to do for all of the citizens. As far as decorum, I've spent more time than I'd like to know, sitting with the attorneys and also trying to study it as well as Councilor Kiley. And I wish it were as simple as if somebody's rude, just gavel them and tell them to sit down. Freedom of speech, there is a lot of case law on this. It is very, very difficult. Short of causing a disturbance, if somebody comes up and they're insulting us, they're saying nasty things, doing all kinds of things, you can't just selectively say, well, you're being rude, you have to sit down. Or you can only talk to us if you're going to be nice. So you got to take the good with the bad. So that's it. We're very, very restricted. I know it would be wonderful in some cases if we could tell people to not do that. Although to an extent, obviously we signed up for it. We should be willing to take criticism. But there are some things beyond the pale. No, I didn't have people here. I didn't call and tell a bunch of people to show up, but we've been getting contacted, and I have, of people that have said, I mean, there's some people that love input and they want it to stay the same, but there's also a lot of people that I just come up to me in the gas station, give me a call, and they have said, in their words, it's turned into a circus. You've got to do something about it. Your meetings have become an embarrassment. They should be respectable, and and that is not denigrating everybody that talks of public input. We have people who come like yourselves that came tonight, and we have people that come and say, I have a problem with the plowing on my street, and we didn't know about it. And we go, okay, and take care of it, and we can deal with it. But there's also a certain amount of people who unfortunately use it to to their advantage. But it does get very difficult to, and we could talk about it, but what are the rules going to be as far as how often somebody can talk, or you can only talk if you talk about certain subjects? That gets very, very dicey. So anyway, those are my feelings, but there's good arguments on both sides of this issue. It's not just rich people that want it versus the average citizen. Average citizens also come for agenda items as well.
I'd like to ask if we have a motion to set a date of hearing and second reading for June 19 at 7 p.m. for this item.
So moved.
Second.
Motion moved by Councilor Selberg, seconded by Councilor Kiley. Is there further discussion on this topic? Councilor Starr.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would move to amend by placing the date July 10th and replacing June 19th.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor to move the second reading to July 10, you said? Mm-hmm. July 10 at 7 p.m. Is there a second for that?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilor Brecky. Any discussion on that motion?
Yes, I'd like to discuss it. My reason for seconding is, again, I'm very concerned about the process that was used to bring this forward, and I've heard a couple council members try to justify that process because it's the process that's been used in several other proceedings. And I'll tell you quite candidly, that's a process, as I observed these council meetings over the months, that was very concerning to me as to how things got slammed down on the agenda so fast, and now I've experienced it, and I'm howling too about it. And yes, your process, you have a process in place. You have working sessions. You can put something on as a working session. You have a whole entire committee structure. I should be saying we now, have a whole entire committee structure. You have a fiscal committee, a public policy committee that's all designed to work in smaller groups and get things vetted out and then bring it down to the bigger group and then put it on the procedure. So the procedure in place is there to do this thing properly, but it's just become a practice that you're comfortable with in doing it this way. And I'm here to tell you, I'm not comfortable with it. Why on earth could not this whole council sit down and talk about this like we're talking about it tonight? We're talking about it, at a point when it's supposed to be at a place where all this is a notice of hearing. We were just supposed to be able to routinely pass it. It's a notice of hearing, and then the big hearing is supposed to happen when it's there. We are supposed to do our vetting, our homework, when we're faced with a city problem, our ability to collaborate and work together, that's our job. That's what we're hired to do, is sit down in a working session on something like this, come up with all our ideas in a working session that the public can be available, hear us working, and ask, and contribute to it. What troubles me is that we're being told that we're just going to put this thing on, all the way through tonight, and I'm never going to have to sit down with my full council. I've heard a little bit from this person, a little bit from that. I've told this isn't going to fly, that's going to fly on the phone. But I can't sit down and talk. I can't talk about the alternative that I proposed, which I think is pretty good. Greg told me he had an alternative, but it wasn't going to fly. Well, who's making the decision it's not going to fly? Why aren't we talking about it? I'd like to hear his. I'd like to hear everything that you guys thought was important that these people told us tonight that we could put together and put in together not only, something with public input, but put some regulations. And no, I'm not convinced that the freedom of speech is so restrictive. We absolutely can put regulations in place that reasonably restrict freedom of speech. That's no problem. I mean, we can control our meetings. We have those rights to do that. So I just am seconding this motion because I feel like if there's at least a chance that we could then at least throw something into a working session, I'd certainly feel much better about what's going to happen, because being elected here and being one of your new council members and basically told that this is the way we're going to do things, which is a way that I abhorred when I watched it, is very troubling to me. So I'm going to second that motion in hopes that we can still have a chance to work on this issue as a team.
Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess the reason that I proposed moving it to July 10th is as a follow-up of what Councilor Nitzert said. I agree that this doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything other than penalize the public because they've been naughty and we're going to push them to the back of the meeting. That's all this does. It doesn't fix decorum. It doesn't fix freedom of speech. And if we wait till July 10th to discuss this, maybe we have an opportunity to look at some of those suggestions that we've had tonight, have that discussion. I'm not sure that there's much we can do, but there's been a lot suggested, and at least we have the chance to vet it out. But the bottom line is when you ignore a problem and put it off, and that's what we're doing, we're ignoring what we think may some perceive as a problem and pushing it to the end of the meeting so that maybe the TV cameras will be gone, the public will give up their right. That's the reason. When I talked to the other councilors from 16 years ago when they made this change, what their concern was is one of them at least told me that there were times where the meetings would get stalled out so until the public left and then they would adjourn because they didn't want, the public wouldn't wait it out till the end of the meeting. And that was the intent of some members of the council, some members of the administration at that time. And so this came to the front of the meeting. There was a reason it was put at the front of the meeting because the public has a right to be heard. And there's nothing that upsets the public more is when they don't feel that their government hears them. And there's nothing more frustrating. So give us a chance to at least debate this out and maybe come up with some other solutions and amend this proposal and add some things to it or not add some or have an up or down vote. Just give us the time to do it.
Thank you, Councilors. So there's an amended motion on the floor for the second reading to be set for July 10 at 7 p.m. If there's no further discussion, I'd like a roll call vote on that amended motion, please.
Council members Kiley?
No.
Nitzert?
No.
Selberg?
No.
Sale?
No.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
That amended motion fails for lack of a fourth vote. And so now we will revert back to the original motion, motion to set a date of hearing for second reading on June 19 at 7 p.m. For item 110. And I believe that was
Council members Selberg and
Selberg and seconded by Kiley. Any discussion on that motion? If not, I'd ask for a roll call vote on that, please.
Council members Kiley?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
No.
Staley?
No.
Brecky?
No.
That passes 4-3. Next item.
Item 10, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement between the City of Sioux Falls and the University of South Dakota Research Park, Incorporated, doing business as the University of South Dakota Discovery District, to fund and maintain street improvements.
Hi, Erica. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Erica Beck with the Mayor's Office. I don't have a full-blown presentation for you this evening, but I can pull that up if you'd like to go through that. And Rich Nazer, who is the president of the USD Discovery District, is also here and can speak to any questions that you may have. Tonight I'm here to present on the topic of infrastructure funding for the Discovery District. Your elected body was briefed on this opportunity at last Tuesday's informational meeting by Rich Nazer and by myself. Given that, as I said, I won't go through the presentation, but I do want to go through a couple of the specific key points within the agreement that I feel need to be considered by your body tonight. This is a 2-year agreement that is being proposed, both for 2018 and 2019. It was developed by the administration in an effort to demonstrate a commitment of funding to this effort not to exceed a total of $1.5 million in change. The demonstration of this commitment is important to the financing of this project moving forward and to the financing agencies and various partners that have come together to move this project forward and achieve a groundbreaking of yet this fall. The agreement itself is split up into different sections, so I'm going to go through it section by section, just a couple of brief key points on each section that I want to cover. Section 1, it talks about the scope of the project. Again, this is a 2-year agreement, both for the remainder of 18 and for 19. It's an agreement between the City of Sioux Falls and the USD Research Park. It is also, it also provides for an appropriation of a minimum of 50% of the total funds, that $1.5 million and change again, being appropriated in 2018, understanding that that specific amount to be budgeted will be done so by the City Council at a future date, with a separate ordinance coming back forward through this body for consideration and approval. The remaining 50% of the funds would then be included in the city's proposed budget for 2019, which would also come back through this body for approval. This agreement also splits this overall $1.5 million into 2 different parts, or 2 different projects, one specific to street improvements and one specific to parking improvements. And that is also noted throughout the remainder of the agreement. So Section 2 specifically talks about the street improvements. Again, I won't go into great detail on that, but it does call out the name and location of the streets to be improved in the project. It also ensures that the permanent public right-of-way easements are in place prior to the allocation of funds or the reimbursement of funds for that project. You'll also probably note in future council agendas, on the consent agenda, there are already items moving forward for streets that are already in place in the Discovery District, making sure that those easements are in place for those streets that have already been built and constructed. It also ensures in Section 2 that compliance with bidding requirements will be met, as with all city projects. Section 3 talks specifically about the parking improvements. Parking improvements specifically for this project will be reimbursed in 2019, again, depending upon this body's approval. This agreement proposes the disbursement of these funds to be done as a grant, and that's specifically noted in this agreement. Section 4 talks about the maintenance of the streets, and Section 5 specifically talks about the funding authorization, which I know was a point of our discussion at last week's informational meeting as well. Again, proposed in this agreement is that the 2018 funding for these services would be limited to street improvements. So again, there's street improvements and parking improvements incorporated into this agreement. 2018 would specifically fund street improvements, and that would come back before this body for consideration at a future date. And we are proposing, we as in the administration, that that would come from the city's second penny sales tax funds. The funding obviously is contingent upon additional council budgetary and appropriation authority, as is the 2019 funding that's also considered in this agreement. That funding specifically would be for the remainder of the street improvements along with the parking improvements, and that would be split between the general fund and potentially another project that would be housed under a typical capital improvement project specifically for collector streets. We as in the administration, again, would propose to bring this back before the council for future consideration of both the 2018 and the 2019 funding. This agreement, again, solely just demonstrates the commitment that those partners that are involved in this project need in order to move forward. Again, Rich Nazer is in the audience. He's the president of the USD Discovery District, and he can answer any specific questions that you have about the Discovery District in general and the projects that are moving forward and which are really driving forward this proposal.
Erica, thank you.
Yep.
Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this issue?
I guess my question is, without having it on the screen, how is the public supposed to know what she's talking about to begin with on what she's going through? And I'd like to know a little bit about this district too, because I'm coming in blind, and I bet you a lot of people that are watching this are coming in blind too on what we're even partnershiping with or what we're doing. And I usually read it off the screen, and that way at least you know what's being talked about and you're reading it versus trying to figure out what you're hearing and what you're not hearing. At least you can read it. Appreciate it if it could be on the screen.
We could certainly follow up with you with some handouts, Tim, that I know we have. That would help. So.
I guess we have the screen. Why don't we use it?
Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this from the public? If not, is there questions for the counselors for Erica? Okay, seeing none. Do we have a motion to approve item 10?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Kiley, seconded by Councilor Sale. Any discussion or debate on this? If not, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Kiley,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
That passes 7-0. Item 11.
A resolution advising and giving consent to the appointment of members to certain citizen boards, those being Teresa Staley, Multicultural Center Intergovernmental Board, and Janet Brecky and Steve Westra, Sioux Falls Convention and Visitors Bureau Business Improvement District Board.
I don't believe we have any staff to speak to this. Jim was maybe going to speak to this, I believe. But is there anyone from the public who would like to speak to this item, address this item? If not, can I have a motion to approve item 11?
So moved. Second, Nitzert.
Moved by Councilor Selberg, seconded by Nitzert. Any discussion? If not, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Kiley,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
Next item.
Next item, item 12, report of the May 31st, 2018 notice of transfer of appropriations within major organizational units.
All right, on to new business. Is there any additional new business amongst the council to discuss? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Move to adjourn by Selberg, seconded by Sale. All those in favor say yes.
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 All opposed, no. That motion is carried, and we are adjourned.